Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting is now called to order. The Borough of Seabright, in compliance with the Open Public Meeting Act, provide adequate notice of the time, date, and location of this meeting to the Asbury Park Press on January 26, 2023. File notice with the Borough Clerk and posted notice on the Borough office and on the Borough website. This meeting is open to the public. I'd like to start off by saying happy Valentine's to everybody. One sad part of the news tonight I want to talk about is Mark Lechstein, which everybody knows is very active in the town, and he's a big asset to us. Some may like him or hate him, I don't know what, but he's not going to be with us tonight because his mother passed away, and I'd like to just extend my condolences on behalf of the board. All right, can we have a roll call?
Sure. Councilman Bieber?
Here.
Ms. Bills? Here. Mr. Cashmore? Chairman Cunningham? Mr. Julio? Here. Yes. Vice Chairman DeSalle?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly? Mr. Lawrence? Here. Mr. Lechstein? Mr. Schwartz? And Mr. Zolino?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, first on the agenda tonight is approval of the minutes meeting on January 24th, 2023. Anybody make a motion?
So moved.
Second? Take a roll call.
Councilman Bieber?
Yes.
Ms. Bills? Yes. Mr. Julio? Yes. Vice Chairman DeSalle?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Mr. Schwartz is not here, sorry. Mr. Zolino?
Yes.
Thank you. And then the closed session.
I didn't have that as a separate. Okay.
It's for both. The regular and executive session, so we need a vote on that one.
Okay, so we need approval of the executive session also?
Yes.
Anybody will make a motion for that?
I make the motion. I'll second.
Okay, we need a roll call on that also?
All right, Councilman Bieber?
Yes.
Ms. Bills?
Yes.
Mr. Julio?
Yes.
Vice Chairman DeSalle?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
And Mr. Zolino?
Yes.
That's it.
Okay, next on the agenda is a memorialization of resolution application number 2022-15. We have not actually been able to review the resolution, so we're gonna carry that to the next meeting. So next on the agenda is our new application. Number 2022-8, preliminary subdivision and preliminary and final site plan approval for the Haven at Seabright, Densholz Acquisitions.
A little housekeeping on this one, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Mitchell and I have had an opportunity to review the applicant's notice for the application. Everything appears to be in order. And before we go any further, does anybody in the public have any comment about the sufficiency of the notice and the contents of the notice itself before we move forward?
Not the notices.
Okay, and by the way, there's a lot of people in the crowd tonight. The way the proceeding is going to work is that the applicant is going to present their application, and this is my first time sitting up here advising this board. Do you usually take public questions after each witness, or are you going to do it?
We, at the end of each testimony, we'll have an open for comments, but not comments, only for questions of the testimony. The comments we save to the end of the meeting.
So when you do come up, and you'll be asked one at a time to come up, come to the microphone, state your name, and you'll be allowed to ask questions of the witness who just testified about their testimony. You will not be giving commentary at that time. If you start to go into commentary, we'll ask you to reserve that until the end. When the time comes that the applicant has completed their case and all of their witnesses have been asked questions by yourselves and members of the board, then members of the public will be invited up one at a time to provide comments, okay? So if we follow that procedure, everything will go smoothly and everybody will be heard tonight, okay? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, John Junko, Giordano Hiring Ceased appearing on behalf of the applicant. As Mr. Asadi just advised, this is an application to permit the development of an affordable project here in Seabright. And the project actually will consist of 25 townhomes, 15 condominium units, 4 single-family homes, and then a remote location within the borough for 9 affordable apartments.
Can you repeat that again? How many affordable homes?
7.
7?
Our application doesn't seek any variances, and I have 3 witnesses this evening. Dan
Can you go
Constable.
back, John? Like, you said 7 affordable? I mean, I'll wait for your witness, but that's not the information I have, so. Just put that in your witnesses' heads, but I had 9, like you said, so.
Yeah,
They can,
seven doesn't mean I'm required. I wanted to try for 9, we had a 10.
so, I mean, I don't want to get into it right now, but we as a borough are expecting 9, so you guys can figure that out between now and the time to testify.
I have 3 witnesses this evening, Mr. Chairman. First, our architect, Dan Contador, our civil engineer, Walter Hopkin, and our traffic engineer, John Red. We filed the application. We've been declared complete. The notice has been accepted. And unless there's any preliminary questions, I would ask your permission to call Mr. Contador.
Absolutely, you can proceed.
Dan? Mr. Chairman, I'm going to offer to Mr. Contador as a licensed professional architect in the state of New Jersey. I'm going to ask him to be sworn. I'm going to ask him to present his credentials to you and to determine if you find them acceptable.
Okay, raise your right hand, please.
Yep.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give this evening shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
State your name, please.
Daniel Condator,
Spell the last name, please.
C-O-N-D-A-T,
I'm sorry, one more time.
C-O-N-D-A-T-O-R-E.
Condatore.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Proceed.
Dan, would you advise the board of your licensing, your credentials, and your practical experience as an architect in New Jersey?
Sure. I've been a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey since 2008. I graduated from Roger Williams University with a bachelor's degree in architecture in 2001. I am the owner of Boat Architects located in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and I've appeared in various boards up and down.
Does anybody have any
think I've-
objections to his credentials? Otherwise, we'll accept it. Thank you.
Thank you. So Dan, did you or others under your direction prepare architectural plans and exhibits to present to the board and to submit for the application?
Yes, I did.
And in that regard, you're familiar with the property, the redevelopment plan, the ordinance requirements, and the agreement between the applicant and the borough?
Yes.
Okay. What overall design characteristics did you consider when you were designing the architecture? Oh, may I interrupt you?
Yes.
They have 2 nice exhibits that I see, 3 nice exhibits that I see are on the wall there.
Yes.
Were those prepared by you or others under your direction?
Yes, they were.
Could you just describe that for the board, and could we mark them now, Mr. Chairman? I think it might make it a little easier.
Yeah, we'll, so, there's 3 exhibits on there. Why don't we start with the one on the left? Can you just describe what that is?
Yeah, that is a 3-dimensional rendering of what we know as the condominium building.
Okay, we're gonna mark that as exhibit A1.
Okay.
Describe that one in the middle, please.
The one in the middle is a 3-dimensional rendering of a townhome building known as Model B.
B as in boy.
Yes.
That would be exhibit A2.
Is that the largest building?
The one on the left would be the largest building.
Do you mean overall or individual?
Yeah.
The overall exhibit, Dan, that was prepared by Walter Hopkins.
Yes, that is not part of
But
it.
that accurately depicts the design and plan for redevelopment?
Yes.
Well, one of the buildings is Phase 3, which I think you call, has 15 units in it.
That would be an image of the building on the left.
The first one?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the, do you want to?
Call the overall plan, I'd ask that to be A3.
And what is that? What's the description of that?
It was prepared by Walter Hopkin, our engineer, and it is an overall description of the proposed plan superimposed on the borough aerial showing the adjoining properties and street.
Very good.
So now, Dan, what overall design characteristics did you consider when designing the architecture for this site?
I mean, as part of being adjacent to the downtown and the overall scale of the development, our primary goal is to create harmony within the development itself and also harmony within the downtown community. So we're pulling architectural styles and details that are seen locally and creating its own character itself. So we wanted to stand out and be unique from the sense that you can tell that it's an overall development, but we also wanted to blend in. So the architecture that we put together, we feel represents both of those things. And I can go into that further if you want to go into the plans and stuff.
Well, what I'd like you to do first is, in the initial review, there were variances identified with regard to the size of the building in terms of setback. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what did you do about that?
So the condominium building on the left that we're talking about, there was just some minor coordination issues with laying our building footprint with the civil plan, and there were some parts of the building that were within the setbacks. So what we did is we adjusted the footprint of the building so we did not require any variances to reduce those setbacks. I mean, they were real minor. It was a foot here, a foot there. So we were able to tighten up the building so we didn't need to seek those variances anymore.
So we no longer require those setback variances?
No.
Okay, now if you would be so kind to just describe to the board
So, I mean, we're lucky in Esrae Park. We're very familiar with the coastal architecture up and down the Jersey Shore. We've done multi-family, single-family developments. Some towns are more traditional than others, and architecture is always changing, always is evolving. I think in our experience, more modern coastal architecture is kind of working its way into this area more than in the past, while some towns have traditional. The architecture that we tried to put together is kind of that bridge in between. We're not trying to create something that's sleek and ultra-modern and ultra-contemporary. At the same time, we're moving away from maybe some of the Victorian or the gable-style architecture. But we're bringing in some of those common materials that you see with the cedar style siding, the white windows, the white trim, the lattice work, and the stone base that is very common throughout Seabright and the Monmouth County Shore area. So in our opinion, this is kind of this hybrid of the two architecture styles that we feel is harmonious with the area, and it creates a really nice, clean, light feeling. I think if you look at the architecture, it doesn't feel heavy and imposing on the site. The site isn't a part of the development. There's some community aspect to it. There's open land area, so we want to be sensitive to that, and we don't want to overburden that. Views are very important to the design of this, so we have large areas for outdoor seating for the residents, a lot of glass, a lot of natural light, the catch views from the west on the riverside and to the east towards the ocean and the remainder of downtown. Things like roof decks and vistas are really important. So overall, I think this is just we have more renderings if anyone has questions, but this is the theme. We've picked two buildings that we felt were pretty prominent. The condominium building is the largest building, and then we also have, in between the condominium building and the single family, we have a townhouse development. So just to clarify, I can get up. Microphones everywhere, right? We're good? Okay.
I think you have to speak up.
Okay, so this elevation here, this rendering that I'm showing here, would be this townhouse block that's in between the single family and the condominium building.
So, but while you're there,
Yep.
the condominium building is Exhibit A1, is that correct?
Yes.
And the townhouse is Exhibit A2.
Yeah, that's correct. So that's really the style of architecture. I have samples of materials.
Well, before you go into that, why don't you describe the interior?
Sure.
the types of units, the sizes, and so forth.
All right, we have like really three basic types, even though there's different individual building blocks. We have the single family residential, which is the 4 units. That's our single families. They're 4 stories tall with a roof deck. We have approximately 3,000 square feet of living space, so that doesn't include the garage, storage, and the parking. The units are set up such that the ground floor is for storage and parking only. We are in a flood zone, so there is no living space that is allowed on the ground floor. On each second level, above that would be your living space. So on the second level, we would have kitchen, dining room, half bathroom, and living space. Our third floor would be 2 bedrooms with laundry, and our 4th story is our master. So the master encompasses the whole fourth floor. We see these as high-end units. We feel that having that 4th story just for the master is a really, really good selling point. And it's a really nice feature. Each unit is set up to have an elevator. It'd be up to an individual purchaser if they want to install it, but it's set up for that if they choose to do that as people get older and retire and they want to have that ability to have that elevator in there. It's there. And then the rooftop would be accessed by a staircase and the elevator and the small outdoor area with a trellis. So that's the basic setup for the single-family units.
How tall are they?
41'6" to the roof,
To the roof?
and then there's a 10-foot overrun for the elevator and the staircase. So that's just a small bump out.
How about the condominium building?
They're the same.
They're all the same?
Yeah, that's correct.
So all the buildings are not going to exceed more than 41 feet for the deck?
It's 41'6" is what we have on the plan. Building type A. Oh, I just copied that one. So type Bs and Cs, those are the townhouses. The townhouses, even though they're in different configurations, they're all set up plan-wise the same, and it's actually very similar to the single-family, just a smaller, more narrow unit. So 4 stories with a roof deck, approximately 2,000 square feet of living space, so a little bit smaller. Second floor, again, living space. Third floor, we have the 2 bedrooms, and then on the 4th story, we have the master with the roof. So that's the basic concept for the kind of for sale type single family units. And then finally, we have the condominium. That one might be better if I bring up the plan on that one.
Can you just stop right there?
Yep.
Can you reconcile that rendering to the site plan? Because I'm struggling to reconcile the two.
So this elevation is facing west towards the river.
I get it, but like if you look at the site plan, they're staggered.
Those are staggered.
That's not how the footprint looks on your rendering. That's what I'm asking.
I don't have another view of this thing.
We're talking about the townhome building, correct?
Right, the building that's immediately to the left of the L-shaped building, those look like individual units that are staggered, and that does not, I can't reconcile this. They don't look the same.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that's the other side of the building. So the floor plan will be the best option for that.
Well,
All I can say is, by my testimony, is that when we build these models, right, so with the technology that we use to create plans, it's Revit, which is a 3D CAD system.
By models, you mean your exhibits?
The exhibits, yes. So when we develop on a computer, whatever we build in plan is 3-dimensional. So all we're doing is...
I get it, but there's been many instances where the civil and the architectural plans don't marry. So while your plans may marry each other, what you're showing me and what that civil plan is showing me is very difficult to reconcile.
So that's the base floor plan.
Well, you know what, Dan, I think it might be helpful. Let's describe the exhibit you're working from and ask it to be marked as A4.
It's phase two, I believe, he pointed out.
I don't, it doesn't matter what the date is, I'm trying to reconcile the architectural plans and the
We're
floor
gonna
plan.
add address
Let's mark it as A4, and that is the.
What sheet of A100?
These are the plans that are part of the application dated.
And it's marked A4 before the board tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
And this is new townhouse development model B.
Reference the sheet number.
The sheet number we're looking at now is 800, A100.
Now, take the riverfront and show how that staggers, and then show how the riverfront staggers on A3.
Sure. So, I mean, the easiest thing to pick out right away.
Stand around this way so the board can see.
I mean, the clearest one is this unit in the middle, right? We have 1, 2, 3 units. That third unit protrudes out the most. And then that's the same, that happens here. So that's that third unit, and then they step back down. So these two stick out more than those two. This one sticks out the most, and then it steps back this way, which is exactly what is shown on the site plan.
That's fine, I feel like it's difficult to reconcile, that's all.
Okay, well.
But it appears your testimony is that the townhome units on the western side will be staggered
Yes,
the way they appear to be in Exhibit A3,
yes.
right?
Mr. Chairman, I think what's going on here is, I'm looking at both right now, and the second floor decks are much straighter, and they make the whole building look straighter, and I think that's what our planner's talking about, Jen's talking about.
When you look at the rendering you showed before, which is A, whatever, 2?
Go to the second floor.
And turn the
The
page.
first floor does.
No, A2, not your plan.
The 3D model.
A2.
Exhibit A2.
It is,
It does, that's the riverside, it doesn't look staggered the way that the site plan looks staggered. So that's the disconnection that I'm having.
Yeah.
I understand that your architectural plans look like the civil plans, but what you're showing me here and how it looks from a rendering, it looks straight across. If you look at the, like you're saying, the porches, they look straight across.
Nothing happens here.
Sorry.
Yeah, so this is this is the unit that sticks out the most right here. That's the third one in. You can see the elevator, right? That's where the elevator is. That's this tower element that protrudes out beyond the next one. And then you can see where it steps back again here. And these two.
I understand, I'm just saying that
Okay.
from a visual perspective, it is a little deceptive based upon when you're looking at the plan, which looks like it's more staggered.
Okay.
So, I mean, that's just my opinion on
Sure.
the architecture. And I get you guys have to figure that out, but I'm just saying that this is not your typical townhouse section. When you look at a typical townhouse, this looks more like a multifamily building. And I'm gonna leave it to the board as to whether or not the architectural is acceptable, that's not my call. But this is not what I would typically see in a townhouse. You would be able to distinguish between this unit, this unit, this unit, this unit. That's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a multifamily building there, which is fine. I'm not opining one way or the other, but I'm saying that the architecture here is not your typical townhouse architecture. So that's all I'm saying. It looks more like a multifamily building. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Oh, we'll go over the floor plans on the
Floor plan.
So I think on this particular building.
That exhibit hasn't yet been marked.
No, it has not.
Dan, could you describe it? We'll ask,
These are the plans submitted for the condominium building. I will start with A100. And these were a part of the submission. Okay. So on this project, the ground floor is primarily service and parking. We have a double loaded corridor for parking. Could you step back? Sure. Yeah, I can turn it to for you. I'll stand on this side. So we have one-way parking, so this would be the north side of the site. So I'll go back to this, there'll be testimony on this, but we'll be entering on the north side. It's a one-way through, and then you exit on the other. So we have double loaded corridor parking. The entire parking area, so you see by the rendering, is screened. We have our egress staircases that are required. You can enter a lobby hallway area from within the garage or from within the street off the sidewalk. So you can enter here. We have a bike room. We have a trash area, so these are trash chutes. So we'll have the trash kept within the building, and it'll be dumped from a trash chute into the bins. And then during trash collection days, when that's scheduled, we'll bring them out to this area on the site where they'll get picked up, and then the maintenance crew will bring them back in. And then here we have an elevator.
Can you go over that trash again? There are individual containers in, it'll be taken out?
Yes, they'll be stored within this trash room.
Is that an enclosed room then?
That's
or-
an enclosed room, yeah. And we'll have a chute, so the person on each level will be able to go from their floor.
So you're gonna utilize our township garbage pickup then?
I don't have that answer.
I think they were private collection, Mr. Chairman.
But you'll have to carry all the cans out?
There'll be a maintenance person will have to bring the cans out to the street for collection and then bring them back in after the collection. Most of the floors are typical. So
Is this A101?
this is A101. Floors are very similar.
5 is, we mark that as,
And what the floor
I
plan?
guess that's what we've been doing, so we'll mark that as Exhibit A5.
This is part of the original plans, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you need to mark the ones that are part of the original plan?
No.
Well, it was submitted to with the application, but it hasn't been marked as an exhibit before the board tonight.
So why don't we call Exhibit A4 the full set of architectural plans?
Okay.
So this will be part of A4.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't want to get away from the garbage right now, because I'm sure that's going to be a concern.
Yeah.
Are you going to have some kind of a custodian working at the building that'll be taking care of this?
Yes.
Or it's going to be out?
There'll be a maintenance staff person.
So it's not up to the tenants to take them out?
No, tenants only bring it to the chute within their level.
And as soon as they're picked up, he's going to bring them back?
Yeah, the tenant has no access to the trash room.
Okay.
So this is the second floor. Really, what we're trying to do is we have a series of, sorry, 2 bedroom units, 4 on each level, and then we have a 3 bedroom unit on the corner. We have some amenity space for a gym, and then we have some flex space. The flex space within the building is used if there's an owner or resident wants to have a birthday party for their child or something like that. They can take that space, set it up. We might use it as a business center, so if you want to work from home, set up some desks, internet where people can leave their unit if you're here for a significant amount of time, and you can go down there and do some work. The units are a decent size. The smallest unit is 1,200 square feet. Each unit has a balcony. We're trying to capture the views, either whether they're facing west or they're facing north, and on this corner unit, we'll have a view going east. We have storage, maintenance, utilities, and our egress. Again, it's basically each unit. This level is the 3rd level. That's sheet A102. Basically the same. A little bit of a larger unit in the corner where we don't have the gym. We still have that same flex amenity space. This unit on the corner remains a 3 bedroom. The remainder of the units are 2 bedrooms. And then, it's a similar layout. A103 is the 4th level. The difference here is that these individual units at this level will have a private staircase that takes them to a roof deck. So we have, I'll show you the roof plan in a second. They'll have their own roof area, but there will also be a community roof space as well. I can show you that. So this is the overall roof layout. So you can see here, each one of the units below has a private staircase that will have a private roof deck area. But at the same time, at this elevation, I mean, we'll have views of both sides, west and east, that want to take advantage for the remainder of the people that have units on the floor below. So we offer a community roof deck space as well.
Dan, I think the board members are having trouble seeing. If you can move over to the.
Trying to.
I know, somebody's got it.
So, I mean, that's
Compliment.
the general layout.
Well, Mr. Chairman, would you like Dan to explain that again?
I think everybody's.
No,
We're with it.
I think it's okay now.
What kind of railings are you putting up there?
Present to us.
We have cable railings. at the
Cable
top.
railings?
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, questions? You ready for that?
Are you finished with your testimony?
No.
Oh, sorry.
More questions? You can ask a question now.
Do you have anything else to describe about either the condominium or the townhouse building?
No, I don't.
Okay. Did you bring any samples of the materials?
Yes, I did.
Did you demonstrate those to the board?
Sure.
Do those
Can I ask
pictures,
a question now?
Go right ahead.
do those pictures depict exactly what the style of the exterior is gonna be as far as material?
Yes. I have two shades that are very similar.
Okay,
So we like them both. Like if the board had a favor of one, we'd be open to your opinion on it. But what we're doing is obviously we're trying to create a cedar shake look, but we're not going to use real cedar. This is a product called New Cedar, which is basically a vinyl composite. It's an individual shake. You put it on just like you're putting on a cedar shingle. It's pre-finished. It has a really long warranty. It does really well in this weather. So between a combination of this and your typical AZIC material that you see here, those are the two base materials throughout the entire design.
so everything's gonna be sort of neutral colors. You don't have
Yes.
to come up with a pink building and a,
These are the two that we're proposing. So one's a little grayer than the other one. This light is not good because we have a lot of blue light in here, so you're not really getting a good look at it. But
I think earlier in the process, there was a debate about whether to make it grayish or bluish or brownish.
Yeah.
And needless to say, that when our client picked the
Yeah.
consultants recommended a different one, so we ripped the one in town.
So would you call that grayish or bluish?
if you saw this one in the sun, like real sun, it has a little blue, like a blue slate hue to it. It doesn't really show up well here because this lighting is not. This is more of a gray. So that almost looks like more like will end up looking like more like a weathered cedar, the grayer one at the end. If you take a white cedar and you let it age, the grayer one would be similar to that effect.
because our town basically is somewhat of a historic town, and we like to try to keep some of the traditional stuff. It is very modern for me, but we just don't want any wild, crazy colors. I see some commercial buildings come out with
No,
orange and green.
What you see in the renderings is what we're proposing.
Yeah,
That
no,
would be
I'm
part of
happy with
our.
that. As long as that's the testimony, you're not gonna make crazy colors.
Our client understands the coloring issue, if you will, and that's why we're proposing these colors. And that's been part of the process of going through the review of the plans and plan preparation over the past multiple months.
Do those samples have like product codes on the color codes on them or anything like that?
As far as
That's just
like names to the colors?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's names on the back of them. One is Argus and the other one is Ito.
Intellectual gray.
Yeah. I picked that one.
Dave, can I ask a question? Can you explain the rooftop decks and the height above the floor surface of those decks? What's it going to be? And what's it made of?
The trellis itself?
Yeah, all of them. Yeah, let's start
Oh,
with.
no, he's talking about the walking surface.
It's going to, well, also the height. I'm worried on the height. Looks like it's going to be at 50 feet above grade.
So the like I said, the roof line, the main roof line is at 41'6". And then this element here, where the stairs and the elevator are is an additional 10 feet. So it is 50 feet there. The roof will be built up. We'll put a floating.
What about the trellis? Like
The trellis is level with the top of the roof. It's not any higher than, it won't be any higher than the elevator overrun, which is the 10 feet that we have on our
And
elevation.
will there be walls or will it be open
No,
fences?
there'll be no wall, there's no walls. We have railings in the areas where we have the patio area. So we wouldn't be, if you look at the plan, we're not just putting a surface over the whole area of the single families. This one's a little bit different. Like, so we have some areas that don't have, this is like a mechanical area, so this will be screened in the middle. We have some areas that don't have any access to it. So it's not just a blanket floor and a wall that goes around. So where we have walking surfaces, we'll have railings that, we try to keep light and transparent. There's no parapet wall, so to speak.
Can you reconcile then, or is there going to be some professional to reconcile compliance with the height? Because building height, 42 feet. And then it says other elements, which is mezzanine, bulkhead, stairs, parapet.
Yep.
But that roof is not any of those things. So is there going to be someone who can reconcile what you're proposing with the requirements of the redevelopment plan?
If you can clarify the question, what element is above?
Well,
We have the bulkhead.
I'm not worried about the elevator. The other area where you're going to have people, the trellis.
The trellis?
Yeah. That's not what this says. It's not defined in here as an element that is allowed to go to 52 feet. So is there some person other than you that's going to be able to reconcile compliance with the ordinance or the redevelopment plan?
No, obviously it doesn't comply. It wasn't specifically written in there.
Well, if it doesn't comply, it's D variance and we need to stop.
Mr. Chairman, we'll simply remove them.
Okay, we'll put that on the record that the trellis system will be removed and not reflected on the final plans.
Suggest the railing?
The trellis, because it creates a roof line that exceeds the allowable height. Even though it's open, I guess it doesn't fall in our ordinance, so.
It's not, it's very clear what is allowed to go to 52 feet in the redevelopment plan, and that is not one of those items. So either we have to stop and revisit, or they can remove it, so they can remove it.
And you're specifically talking about the trellis.
Just
Yes, like the elevator overrun, that's different, but where you're gonna have public and there's a roof and et cetera, that's not included in the allowable overrun to the 52 feet.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions.
Certainly.
Okay, Dan, thank you. I think well covered. There was a concern early on that the area up top where the elevator is, you said it, but I just want to make sure it gets on the record, has no living area whatsoever.
No,
It is access to the roof only.
correct.
There'll be no storage area, no seating area or anything up there to increase the sight view or blockage,
No.
other than the elevator or stairway.
Yes. Yeah, and the corridor that's associated, like the connection vestibule, if you want to call it, between them.
Okay, because I know one of the things that you're trying to do and we're trying to do is minimize the highest view, so to speak, or blockage out.
Correct.
And the only thing that'll be at that height is the elevator stairway access.
Yes.
Okay. The second thing, and maybe there's a better place to talk about this, if there is, I'll certainly wait. But you didn't say anything on your site plan about public access amenities.
That is.
That's going to come up later
Yes,
on.
yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
Any other members of the board have any questions of this testimony?
How many units total are in the condominium section?
The condo building has 15.
15.
Yes.
If there's no other questions from the board, we'll open it to the public. Is there anybody in the public that would like to have a question to this testimony? Can you stand and state your name?
Hi, Chris Jerry, 15 Church Street. Hi.
Can you explain a little bit more to me about the garbage area? Will the chute or whatever area be closed? Will it be venting? Will it be open?
It'll need to be vented, it'll be enclosed within the building, so it's an interior room, and it's very common for multi-family buildings.
I'm just trying to see if it's going to be vented to my backyard or it's going to be vented to the side.
So Jerry, how do you spell your last name?
J-E-R-R-Y, just like first one.
Yeah, so, well, I mean, if it is a concern, we could definitely pipe the venting, like, so it doesn't have to vent directly in the wall. It's something we can do. We can vent it, offset and try towards the public way. It's not a problem for us.
If I can interrupt for a second, when we approved the Tommy's, they actually installed somewhat of like a purification system to vent it out.
Yeah,
Closed room.
those are options too. So it's something that we can look at.
Because in the summer with garbage sitting there, I'm sure it's going to make some odors and the
It
people
will-
living next door. are not
Yes, and
happy.
there will be that element of deodorizing and sanitation, and also just, shifting the vent to, diffuse somewhere else, closer towards maybe the street line. You can always run a simple duct and vent out the side. It's not right.
So is the notion to bring the cans just right outside, or is it to bring them to the street, or
I can't, it's hard for me to say because I don't know actually how the person hauling is where they would stop. I mean, ideally we bring them out to the loading area, which is here, and then they either, if they,
You can direct it to the TV.
yeah, you can bring them to the street.
Yeah, again, it's my backyard, so this is my
Okay.
big concern, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a loading dock area for a truck to back into, is that the idea?
Yes, yes.
Do you have another rendering of that other building, the condo building, the other side of it? Because that's what we're going to be all looking at. I mean, this looks beautiful from the front, but we're not going to be looking at that, so.
No, I don't have it from the back. I mean, I have other,
Is it similar to the back of the townhouse unit you're showing there?
I think it's actually, I mean, I don't want to speak. I think it's better than this, actually.
Is there balconies?
There's just the balconies from a couple of units. There's elevation.
I think we'd like to see the back of that unit, right? I mean,
I have a 2D elevation of that I can show you, so hopefully that helps. It's not major, unfortunately. This would be the elevation. So you can see some of the elements that we have along the front. That element with the vertical siding, which you see here, the glass corner, which is similar. So, these elements are very similar. The siding, glass in the corner.
are those little balconies running in the center there? Is that
Yeah, that's a balcony for those flex spaces are.
flex spaces?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of noise to me, community spaces, a lot of people hanging out, a lot of noise, so I'm just, my opinion on that, so don't strike me out there, but, okay, and again, the entrance to the unit off of Church Street, that's one way in?
Yes.
One way out, that's
Mr.
not.
Chairman, we'll address those with the
Yeah, I think
engineer.
okay.
I think that would be more accurate.
When the engineer testifies, he'll go over site plans and driving and parking and.
Okay, because I was told during that time.
The architect just drew the building, yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I'm just not the best person for site maneuver and site layout.
okay, then that's it, thank you. Thank you.
I have a question about recycling.
Let me finish we're in the public session right now. Is there anybody stand and state your name?
Chris Stocksy, 9 Church Street in Seabright. Is it appropriate at this time to ask questions about bulkheading? Or does that come in another
No, that'll be
section?
later with the engineer.
Okay, all right. I just didn't want to get.
We wouldn't do that to you. Stand and state your
Hi, good
name.
evening, Rob Long, 20 New Street. So I know we're looking at the townhouses and the condos. Are plans for the single-family homes going to be approved tonight as well? So we're going to see those?
I described them, but I can show them to you if you'd like to.
Those
Do you have
are
anything
environmental.
you want to see?
Yes.
Someone in the public would like to see it, yes.
Sound like the other exhibits, these were prepared by you or under your direction?
Yes.
Could you describe them, and then we'll ask it to be marked as the next exhibit, which I think will be A5?
That's correct.
These were part of.
Yeah, read, what are they?
These are Newtown Home Development Model A. I'll go to page A100. Clarifying, there was a comment in Jen's, it says townhome on the title block because it's a uniform title block, but these are single-family houses on this set. I'll try to stand somewhere where everybody can see, but I don't know how well it's gonna work. Okay, so this is the ground floor level. We're looking at A100, the ground floor. The garages, and you'll see in the site plan, are facing west, and the rear, if you want to call it the rear, faces, sorry, this faces east, and the rear faces west. Sorry about that. So you enter, you can.
Oh, wait, I got confused. The garages are facing east, aren't they?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry
Go
about
out into the river.
that. We have a two-car garage, entry to a foyer with a vestibule, foyer area, staircase, elevator towards the back, and then access to through the garage to the back area. A small mechanical room, and then a little fenced-in area that kind of shows their private space. Going up to the second level, we have an open staircase. Going from east to west, we have a kitchen along the steering wall, dining room in the middle, very open floor plan, free flow, lots of light and air coming through, with balconies on the west side, on the river side, with stairs that can go down directly from the outside. Again, that elevator, we have a small powder room and closets in the corner. And here we are on the third level. So you come up the stairs, we have a laundry room, washer dryer, bathroom. Well, one of the cool things that we wanted to create was a nice two-story volume. So the living space below is open. So that living space is a two-story height space, which we think is really special. And then you have this kind of open railing area, it's like a little den sitting area. And then we have 2 bedrooms with closets. And then going up to the top of the 4th level, and this would be the master suite. So along the eastern wall, going east and west again, we have the master bath, the shower, freestanding tub. Yeah, here's an air walk-in closets. We have the bed area, but then we also create this sitting area for the master that has that view west with a private balcony, which we think is going to be a little special place to be.
The space between, so I see that there's 4 units there, the space between the 2 that are next to each other, how much the foot's difference between?
I don't have that. It's on the site plans, so I don't have that on the reality. So Walter can answer that. And then again here, you come up the stairs, there's an elevator and the roof access. And then this is the roof deck area here. And that's the basic layout of the single family.
So are they all essentially the same square footage?
Yeah.
Pretty much the same?
They're the same. Yeah, all 4 are the same.
So the renderings there to your right,
Yes.
that's indicative of the west-facing view. So if
Yes.
you were standing in the river, that's what you'd be seeing?
Yes, that's correct.
So the trellises on that rooftop,
Well, no, everything that's above that has to.
are they putting outdoor showers?
I don't know off the top of my head if we were planning outdoor showers at this time. I mean, we should, but no, there are regulations because we are in a flood zone and you're not supposed to have a drain. So the answer technically is no. I have to mark this.
What is this now?
This is a rendering of the east elevation of the single-family housing.
Okay. You want to mark it as A6? What's this on?
Will do. What was the description of that again, please?
It's the
Elevation, single families, east. Okay, thank you.
Again, we see the trellises.
Yes.
All trellises are gonna be removed,
Yes.
saving money.
That's not a good problem. So,
Nice to meet you.
can I jump in? I don't know how, that's not.
Well, I want to describe.
Yeah, so this, I mean, quickly, this is the, you see the entrance to the garage, it's recessed underneath the house to give some cover for the entrance to the house. There's a small little balcony on the second floor, and you know, uniformity in the windows, highlighting where that tower element is, and then the use of the siding that I described. I'm trying to bring those features, you know, around. This side is obviously going to have, especially the lower level, doesn't have the views that the western side is going to have. Those large, you know, bathrooms, which I think is appropriate because, you know, there's other residences nearby and you want to be staring into, you know.
So there's a 2-car garage.
Yeah.
And then did you say there's space for 2 cars in the driveway?
I believe so, yes.
Well, for those single-family homes, you're only required 2 parking spaces per home. Are they going to, they're gonna be under the building, aren't they?
We can put 2 in the garage and then partially 2 in the driveway, so.
But we have an ordinance that you can't park in the front setback, or won't qualify for a legitimate parking space. So you really have to just designate that the 2 parking spaces in the garage are.
Walter will have to answer that,
Okay.
since he's the site plan. I don't know where those the driveway sets up with the boundary.
I'm not saying you can't park out there, but you can't use it as a calculation for your.
Correct, and I can't speak to that.
Is there anybody else in the public? Please stand and state your name.
Yeah, hi, Garrett Penalty, 22 Church Street. Couple questions on the building lines, your A200s, the elevations there's a lot of documents on the website, so I don't know what's current or not, but there's an A200 elevation, calls for a 9'5" first floor elevation, or first elevated floor elevation.
Correct.
If you look at the contour lines, there's an existing contour of 3 and 4 that go into the existing site. It appears that the site is being lifted to about the 5 contour, maybe 6. So to create swales and other things. So the building here is shown as a very flat, but the slope on the driveway is 10%. So this building is not sitting flat on the ground like it's shown. It's being lifted.
Let me clarify. As far as datums are set up, the datums on our architectural elevations are based on. They're relative, 0. I can't speak to the grading part of it, how we grade around the building. I know there is some grading away from the building for drainage and to try to get those the parking in the garage as high as we could. Just if, just in any case of any little ponding in the street or whatever, that it's not going into the garage itself. So they are slightly elevated. I can't speak to it technically. That'll have to come from.
I'll reserve the rest of my comments to the civil engineer.
Yeah.
The elevations that you're talking about are based on the height of the property around, not sea level elevations.
Yes, that's correct.
So that's something you might want to clarify. It's not elevation 9 from sea level.
I realize that.
Okay.
I realize that. My own goal is to find out how high that piece of property is being lifted.
And Somebody back here has a question? Can you stand and state your name, please?
Drew Miller, 16 Church Street. So a couple of questions. I noticed the artist rendering, there's a lot of grass, trees. Now, is that something that is going to stay the way they are in that picture?
I mean, we worked off of the site plan, but we were not responsible for landscaping. It's part of the civil testimony, so they'll go into more depth about the final landscaping design.
Oh, okay. And that would also include this area?
Yeah, that's
I thought that there was going to be some kind of walk on the river.
Again, the engineer will go over all this. This is strictly the architectural buildings.
I don't know if I'm asking the right questions, but also on the building that we're looking at, I don't understand what the top part is. What is that?
Well, this is going away. This trellis. This was a trellis, but we're removing it.
Okay. So there's not going to be any kind of canopy or anything?
No, there's no hard roof over the roof deck area.
Okay. Why is that in that picture though?
No, they just agreed to remove them.
Yeah.
We brought that question up.
Misinterpretation on our part of the redevelopment plan. We thought they were allowed and they're not, so we're going to remove it.
Oh.
I think the question was, what was the purpose, right?
No. Is that, you were referring to that as the gables? Is that it?
No.
I don't know. I didn't know what that was.
No, it's just, it's a roof trellis, and then we're going to close it.
The reason why I'm also asking is because where I live, based upon the elevation of the structures, I'm wondering, what was agreed upon versus what I'm looking at.
Yeah, we're removing those portions.
Can you please stand and...
Yes, hi, Catherine Reeser, 23 Main Street. And I just wanted to know if the single-family homes will also be the neutral colors, or can they take out their own colors?
No, it's all developed as one uniform color.
Yes, please.
Mark Eichman, 20th Street. So I was also looking at the drawings that are online on the elevations. I think specifically on the condo building. Your testimony was 51'6" for all the buildings?
No.
Yes, I believe, yes.
I'm pretty sure, and I might be mistaken, I saw a 53'6" dimension for the height of the condo building. So I'll check.
Their testimony was 41.6 and then the additional 10 feet for the stairwell and the
Well, that's an error on the plan. There's nothing going to that datum. I don't know why that datum actually showed.
So I'm not crazy.
Yeah, it's on there, but there's nothing going to that. Okay. It's a blank datum. You can see on the elevation, there's no object or structure that will go up to 53.6. That's just something I can clarify. It's just an error on the plan.
Reaffirm the testimony for the building height.
Yes. The building height will be 41.6 to the roof and then 50'6" to the top of the stair tower and elevator.
Okay, if that's the end of the public questions, we'll close the public at this time.
Sorry.
One more?
I just wanted to clarify that the individuals are not going to be at that 50-foot level. They're going to be lower at the 41.6. Is that going to be the height of walking onto the roof and socializing?
The roof level is at 41'6", and then it's 10 foot from the stair. Everything is pretty much the same across the board.
Also, I was wondering how long it's going to take to build all this.
I cannot speak to that.
Yeah?
I'm sure my client wants to say as fast as possible, right?
By the time they put the bulkhead in and get through all the paperwork, it's gonna be a while.
Yes, sir. A lot of moving parts.
All right, if there's no other questions from the public, we'll close the public portion. There's no other questions from the board?
I wanted to ask about the recycling.
Sure.
Now, the recycling, big cardboard boxes are not going to forget to shoot.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do about that?
So we'll have to work with the building management to have some kind of collection process within the building where that gets picked up by the maintenance team.
I see.
Is this maintenance person gonna be living there or just coming there?
No, there'll be employees.
They'll be there during the day the whole time?
No, probably not all the time, but some portion of them there every other day.
Would it be more like a superintendent? So somebody who would be there for maintenance as well, and
Yeah, likely.
So I have a question. I just wanted to make sure, clarify, there's elevators in both the condos and the townhomes?
Correct.
Okay. And they all have the same height?
Yes.
Okay, if that's it, then thank you for your testimony.
So I live on Church Street. I'm assuming when this is going to be built, there's going to be a lot of trucks coming down my street. I'm wondering if on the actual job site, if they're going to be able to house the material, or is this going to be just constant, back and forth with trucks? In other words, will they be bringing the material and having it?
I think there's a traffic engineer here that's gonna testify to like the traffic and the trip distributions and stuff like that.
Thank you.
I don't think that's an architectural question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The next person you like.
Walter Hopkins, please.
This is your engineer.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to offer Mr. Hopkins, an expert in the field of civil engineering, and offer him as an expert witness to the board. Ask that he be sworn.
Raise your right hand. You swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes, I do.
And state your name.
Walter Hopkins,
And spell your last name, please.
Hopkin.
Okay.
And your credentials will be,
Sure, I'm a licensed engineer in the states of New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland. I'm a certified municipal engineer in the state of New Jersey.
good day. Does anybody have any?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Walt, you and others under your direction designed all the plans that are presented before the board this evening.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so could you just describe the preliminary and final major subdivisions and site plans that you prepared?
Sure, it's a 2.66 acre site. The board obviously knows the location. It's west of Ocean Avenue, generally along the river. And the project runs from almost Beach Street down to River Street. The addresses are 31 New Street, 21, 40, 42, and 50 Church Street, 4, 8, and 10 Front Street, 9, 15, and 16 South Street, 6, 8, and 10 River Street. Poppy Place is also part of this the site, which will be vacated. It's also known as Block 13, lots 13 through 18, 20 through 22, Block 14, lots 12 and 14, and Block 15, lots 5 through 12. It is located in your River Properties redevelopment plan area. As the board's well aware, the site currently is a mix of various buildings, commercial uses, and a lot of pavement. What we're proposing, we fully intend to comply with your redevelopment plan. You can see we've already made an adjustment to make sure that we do. So all of the bulk and other requirements, we intend to comply. There are 4 single-family homes. There is 7 feet between there's 2 groupings. There's 7 feet between the 2. And then there is the boat ramp is being relocated between the 2 groupings, and that's approximately 35 feet. There's a 15-unit condo building. There's a new bulkhead that's proposed along the entire frontage, or river frontage, with a park that has amenities, a boardwalk, reconfigured boat ramp. There's off-street parking that's proposed, as well as on-street parking.
Before you leave the bulkhead and the riverfront, would you mind going to the exhibit and demonstrating exactly where that bulkhead is going to be, and the extent of what is being replaced by our client?
Sure, the bulkhead goes from this area here, which is almost to Beach Street, goes all along the river frontage to River Street. That will be set at elevation 9.0, and will have a 10-foot wide boardwalk at minimum along the top.
Elevation's going to be 9, is it?
Yes.
So 7.
It will be 9.
You raised it to 9?
We didn't raise it to 9.
No, the plan says 7.2.
I believe,
That's our requirement in town to go to 7.
we do have 9. I did see that 7 shot, but it is 9.
On a previous discussion with you and me, we talked about it being higher at 9, and then the ordinance obviously will govern.
But then the bulkhead will be higher than the boardwalk?
No, they'll be at the same elevation.
The boardwalks can be at elevation 9 also?
Yes.
Now, how do you address the boat ramp?
So the boat ramp will go, there'll be a break in it, and what we've done is we've kind of elevated the boat ramp so that water doesn't come up it. So it goes up and then down, a little bit of a hump there is what we've proposed to try to keep the water out at the boat ramp.
Okay, and then one of the questions in the engineering was, the boat ramp has no parking facilities or any, I mean, how's it gonna be utilized? Is it just for kayaks and things like that?
I apologize, your redevelopment plan doesn't require 2 spaces. We do show 2 spaces. It's very vague here. They're just not labeled. I have to apologize for that. But as you can see, there's a gravel walk from the boat ramp that takes you out onto Front Street. And then there's 2 spaces that go along there.
Will they have sidewalk if they're dedicated for this purpose?
We can work with the engineer to provide, and DPW to provide appropriate signage throughout the site.
Because if it's gonna be, I can't imagine it being using regular boats there. I mean, between the trailer and the car, or the length of the parking space required, the car to be able to maneuver backing all the way down there, up the hill and down into the water.
I thought it was envisioned as a kayak.
Yeah, I think we should relabel it as a kayak.
I'm not a boat guy, but I tend to agree with you.
Since they brought it up, the gravel walkway going down, could you make that a little bit more durable?
I can ask DEP.
Okay. So it's part of
I think
impervious coverage.
The applicant would be willing to do that, we're not sure you'd be able to get it approved because, hey, it's right next to the river.
Yeah, well, there's a long distance between the road and down, and maybe part of it, you're using pervious pavers on the walkway going through the site. Maybe you can at least do the first areas adjacent to those 2 parking spaces a little further down, something so that it's not stone all over the place.
So you'd like, instead of gravel, you want it to be the pavers?
Or whatever you choose, but something that you can improve, of course.
Well, something like that would be acceptable. In fact, our client would agree now. If you wanted to make it the pavers, we'll do that. If you want us to make a different proposal, we'll take a look at it. And that may be the proposal, and maybe do something else. But we're certainly willing to accommodate the direction.
I can't understand this bulkhead. Now, how high are a borough?
7.2 is the elevation in the ordinances.
So the ground elevation here is approximately 2, correct? Most of the area is 2 in that area of elevation?
So towards the Beach Street, if you don't mind, do you want that answer from Mr. Hoder or from me? Because I'm happy.
I don't have the grade plan in front of me, so.
Yeah, so towards Beach Street, it's as low as 2, and then it gradually increases in the larger area, the large green area. We're in the neighborhood of 4 in that area.
And the bulkhead is going to be at 9.
Yes.
So it's going to be 7 feet above the ground at the northern end.
So we're going, yes, but we're tapering the grading down to kind of provide like a amphitheater type.
So there's not going to be a wall there holding up the boardwalk?
There will be a wall, yes.
Wow. Jennifer, what do you think of elevation 9?
I think.
I mean, that's great for 300 years from now.
Aesthetically, it's going to be difficult.
It's really much. Standing on the ground, you're going to be able to even look over the boardwalk.
Yeah, you'd sit there.
Standing on the ground.
If you're standing on the ground over in that grassy area, you wouldn't be able to see the water.
I think the overall grading plans going.
Bulkhead will be 7 feet above where you're standing. That's taller than me. I guess you had something to do with asking for 9?
I didn't have anything to do.
No, well, I can talk about it. We previously talked about it going to 9, but I believe there's an ordinance in town, I was just about to look it up, saying that all bulkheads have been set at 7.2 for any new projects. So I think we're gonna have to change it.
I know that for a fact, because I'm putting in a bulkhead right now, I had to get a permit for
Isn't that-
it. It's elevation 7.
It's not, yeah, Dave, that's a minimum requirement.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's not required that it has to be 7 foot or 7.2 foot. I understand your point, and I don't know if I want to debate it here, but in my mind, if the developer wants to put in 9 feet, it's increased flood protection for that part of the town.
It is, there's an aesthetic issue too.
There's what?
There's an aesthetic issue.
I understand.
When you have a walkway and then you have like, so it's basically like a 2.5 foot wall, or
Yeah.
2 foot wall that you're walking along. So while the elevation overall is something that you may want to defer, but how it impacts like the aesthetics in this project, this is the time to talk about it.
So on, I'm trying to see what this is, sheet 7, that has your elevations on the grassy area.
Yes.
Am I reading this right? It's about 6, 7 feet?
So we go to an area in the, kind of goes down to a bowl almost.
Okay.
Hang on, I just want to mark this set of plans as A7. Walter, can you describe the plans for me?
Those are plans prepared by our office, WJH Engineering. It's entitled Preliminary and Final Major Subdivision and Site Plan, Haven and Seabright, last revised January 31st, 2023.
Do you want us to move it
Can everybody see this? Do you want me to move it? Good. So we're at an elevation of approximately 4 in this area, and then we grade it up to 9.
Okay, I never saw a grading plan. I was assuming that one was level. Now that I saw the grading plan, I can see that it's gradually pitching up. That makes more sense.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, you have a walkway adjacent to the bulkhead that is at the same level as the bulkhead. And then a railing, I assume, on top of the bulkhead. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if you really want to do, you go up on the walkway.
Correct.
Although if you were standing in the middle of that at about 6 or 7 feet,
It's still okay.
you can still see it.
Right. We're
Unless you're a
balancing,
child.
we're balancing protection with aesthetics. The gentleman accurately indicated that the roads are, towards the Beach Street, they're in the 2-3 foot elevation, and they climb to 5. So we're not raising the roads. We're slightly raising the proposed homes and the grade above them, and then we're ramping up behind them to the bulkhead.
Like I said, I didn't see the grading plan. Now it makes a little more sense what you're creating. I thought you were going to be down at 2 at the bottom of the grass and looking up over the wall. It's ridiculous. But back to this situation on elevations, are you going to get into how you're going to provide drainage?
Sure, sure. To kind of give the board an overview of how we're dealing with drainage, the site naturally breaks currently between New Street and Church Street. So I'm oversimplifying this a bit, but a portion of the site midway between New and Church drains ultimately to Beach Street to your pump station. There's an existing stormwater system that conveys it down there, and the rest goes out towards River Street. We propose to continue those same drainage patterns. So the water from midway between New Street and the new Front Street will drain towards Beach Street to your existing pump station. The other will go out to River Street. Now,
Is there an existing pump station there?
so there is not.
I didn't think so.
What's being proposed as part of this is that there will be a pump station that the developer will contribute a significant amount towards as part of the redevelopment plan that the borough will build with those funds. What we're doing is several of those streets are dead-end streets with pipes that extend out into the river. We're going to intercept those, take our drainage as well as the existing drainage, and take it down to the River Street pump station.
No, that's most important. Our natural drainage is not is failing a little bit.
You're challenged here. You're elevationally challenged.
Because we have at least 5 or 10 significant floods every year, and this is all gonna be terrible condition if we don't have a good pumping
Now, we are reducing the impervious surfaces significantly, as you can, if the board has a visual of what the site looks like now, you see a lot more green area there. It's 0.85 acres of impervious, so either buildings or paving that are going to be removed as a part of this application.
Flooding's all tidal here, so that's not significant.
Does grass survive when it's been inundated with salt water 4 or 5 times a year?
No, not mine.
Hey, Dave, can I just say something?
Absolutely.
Okay. So right now, the town is involved in a comprehensive review of the flooding situation that we have in town. Right, and we're looking at potentially the bulkheading in some form, which has yet to be decided. But a couple things I would say. Number one, with the additional pump station that you're proposing, number one, with the check valve work that's going on right now, which has been long in coming, but the good news is we have check valves going across the town. And with the height of the bulkhead proposed, I've been spending a lot of time with Greg Lash, the engineer, on this. And from my perspective, this is going to have an incredible, significant improvement for the flood risk for the town. Now, granted, it's only 800 feet or whatever it is you have here. Just north is JCP&L, which has applied for a bulkhead, which is going to get approved to elevate it further. We've got the bridge coming in. So what we're trying to figure out is how to connect these points with the work that you're doing here to try to effectively eliminate 90% of the flooding that happens in town. If we're able to do that, that is a massive game-changing improvement for the town. So I don't have any official comment about the 9 feet. 7 feet is the requirement, but in my mind, in this town, higher is better, right? When supported by pump stations, check valves, and the other things we're trying to do in the town. Thank you.
In a prior life, I was your neighbor, the Borough of Highlands engineer, and we had similar challenges, but whenever a development came in, we took it where we could get it. And the public would say, well, what about me over here? Well, take it when you can get it, has always been our, now, the other thing that I also want to mention is with the stormwater management, that it will be piped down there, and we are picking up not just our development. So that was something that was made clear to us from Mr. Hoder from the very beginning. Just as Mr. Zelina said, our initial stance was we're reducing impervious, and he said that's great, but we need a lot more than that. So the stormwater that we're picking up, I want to reiterate that those outfalls that go out to Church and New, that are currently picking up everything west of Ocean Avenue, and even the borough's parking lot, the one that we're in now, we've sized and have accommodated that drainage system to take not just our development, but all of the road and everything west of Ocean Avenue. And it's anticipated that the pump station also will be sized for that too. We've done some preliminary work with Mr. Hoder's office to accommodate that. Councilman was present in those meetings, and there was a clear message that was sent that we needed to do more than just.
Basically, you complied with the borough's plan to try and improve the storm drainage situation.
Yes, that's correct.
It's in your best interest anyway. Since this is all low areas in here, if you can't prove to your purchasers that this is flood conditions going to be satisfied, you're going to have a little trouble selling maybe.
We agree. And the gentleman had brought up and astutely observed that the roads are in the 4s, the driveways or the garages are in the 5 and the 6 elevation. And we are purposely elevating those. I think it maybe just didn't make it through to the rendering, but from a civil standpoint, we are elevating the garages as high as we can in that short amount of time, and then livable space will be well above the flood hazard area.
So Walter, could you just overall address parking on the site and the configuration of some of the parking areas?
Sure. So parking, your redevelopment plan spells out the requirements for parking, which is 2 parking spaces per unit, regardless of the bedrooms or the type of unit. So for the single families, you've heard the testimony. There's a 2-car garage. There's the availability of 2 cars in the driveway. However, 2 are required and 2 are provided. 4 are provided, but I'm only allowed to say 2 in your borough. As far as the condo building, the townhouses, so there's 25 townhomes. The ordinance requires 50 spaces. Each unit has a carport and a garage, or they have a 2-car garage. So the townhomes that front the river have a carport and a 1-car garage. The townhomes between South and River have 2-car garages that are loaded from the back.
So, can I just stop you right there? Would you be willing to stipulate in any kind of like documentation that the garages can only be used for parking? Because my experience in a townhome, the garage gets used for storage, the driveway gets used for a car, and the other parking space, quote unquote, winds up somewhere else. And so I've seen this in other municipalities where for townhomes with a garage, there's a stipulation in the HOA agreement that the garage has to be used for a car if you're counting it towards your parking requirement.
I can't.
Well, that would be part of the homeowners association.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is that townhomes in general,
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
right? The garage never gets used for cars, always used for storage. And I understand that per RSIS, the garage gets to be counted, but if you're gonna count it, then it has to be used for a garage. And in an HOA doc, which I've had in multiple other municipalities in Monmouth County where I work, where townhouses have come into play, they have agreed that the garage in the HOA docs, the garage has to be accommodating for a car. You can't just, well, if it's a 1-car and 1 garage, you have to accommodate at least 1 car if they're counting it for the RSIS. Because in this particular area of the borough, if you're not being able to park 2 cars, you're going to negatively impact the balance of the people that live in that area
Well, they
with
are
the
2-car
cars.
garages, aren't they?
So the townhomes,
2-car garages.
And they're off private ways. There's no place else for them to park. They can't possibly block those private ways, so.
I understand, but what I'm saying is if they put all their crap in their
I
garage
understand what you're saying.
and they can't park there, the second car is going to be parking in someone else's road or someone else's house, negatively impacting the other people in the area. It's a very easy stipulation in the HOA doc to say the garage has to be used for a car. You can't put everything you own in the garage and the car gets parked in front of someone else's house.
No,
Because that's
There's
kind of,
no parking passes.
Yeah, I mean,
No off-street parking passes.
an approach to this could be that if you live in North Agnes, you cannot get a residential parking pass.
regardless, it's very easy for them to put in the HOA docs that the garage has to be used for a car. It's a very simple stipulation. I've had it come into play in almost every other town in Monmouth County. It's not unusual. And so,
Well, would you agree to making that part of the,
Yes.
to agree? Now, in that area though, I only see 13 additional parking spaces outside on the road.
right, so let me, if I can walk you through so you're concentrating on,
The north side.
on River Street, you're right. So each townhome has 2 spaces available to them. The condos also require 2 spaces per unit. There's 15 units, so there's 30 spaces required. There are 39 at the ground floor level off street. In addition to those, so every unit has 2 spaces directly adjacent to it.
You say 39 are provided off street?
Yes. So it has at least 30. There are 6 spaces that are along the new front street between Church Street and South Street.
Go slower, because I don't see that on my map.
So it may not be clear, but they are shown here in gray. There's 6 spaces.
Yeah,
one of
6
which is
spaces,
ADA,
yes.
One of which is an ADA space.
How are you going to be able to control them to be used by your facility or your tenants or?
Well, pursuant to your redevelopment ordinance, we exceed your ordinance with regard to parking required for the condo building. So 30 spaces are required. We have 39 inside. We have 37 inside the building. We have 2 over here for Uber or delivery or something like that.
Are they going to be numbered and reserved?
These are not going to be numbered or reserved. They're going to be.
Well, when Tommy's gets a little too full, they're gonna be all parking in your parking spaces.
Well, so, they're in a public right of way, and I'm not sure that,
Are those spaces in public property?
yes, they're in the right of way.
Okay, so the only way that the person that regulates them is the municipality. If the municipality wanted to assign them to these property owners, they can do that. If they want to make them open to the public, they can do that. I expect the DEP expects them to be open for use of the waterfront facility.
Oh, there's a good comment.
That was the original.
Public access.
Public access parking.
Okay.
So, just to reiterate, so we'll have 2 spaces down here by the boat ramp. We'll have 6 spaces here, all within the public property or public right of way. In addition to that, we have 7 spaces proposed, parallel spaces along river. And we'll have 6 spaces which are shown in this. We have 2 private driveways for circulation between River and South Street. And we have 6 spaces here which would be reserved only because they're outside of the public right of way, would be reserved for the townhomes. Over and above which a redevelopment plan requires.
I'm just trying to make sense of which spots we're counting towards the parking requirement and which ones we're not. Are we counting all of the spots that you just went over, or are we only counting those that are outside the public right of way?
Only spaces outside the public right of way.
Okay.
We comply with your redevelopment ordinance with parking spaces outside the right of way.
Okay, thank you.
In addition to that, in the right of way, as the board may be interested to know, we have 2 spaces for the boat ramp, we have 6 spaces along Front Street, and 7 along River that are not included in our parking.
That are dedicated to the public.
So the total is 15 total? Did I do the math right?
Yes, you did.
On Front Street there, across from the single-family homes, is that available parking across the street from them, or because it's not designated? Is that street wide enough to do parking?
On what street, I'm sorry?
On Front Street, in front of the 4 single-family homes? I guess that street's not wide enough to park on, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, it is.
It's a one-way street.
It is. It's scaling about 23 or 24 spaces, 23 or 24 feet wide. I don't believe it's
on one side of the street there. There is parking there now.
You can park on one side.
On one side.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's going to be houses, if this is approved, there'll be houses on the other side, so you can't. But parking's the worst condition we have in this town, besides flooding.
right. So every new space, look, I've been down there. Very few of the homes, several of the homes, many of the homes don't have parking. So we are not only providing for our own, but we're providing additional spaces.
So there's a net gain of public parking spaces.
That's correct.
Do you know by how many exactly?
15.
Well, you're allocating 15, you don't know what's there right now, if there's any.
Correct. Are we eliminating some that exist currently due to the development, but gaining 15, but the net is what?
I don't know that any of those are, maybe on River Street, they may exist. Certainly along Front Street. Front Street doesn't exist there now. That's a new road that we're proposing, so there's at least the 6 along Front Street and the 2 for the boat ramp, kayak ramp, that don't exist today.
So would it be accurate to say that between 8 and 15 public parking spaces are being created as a result of the project?
Yes.
There's an issue with how the redevelopment plan doesn't match up with the residential site improvement standards. Residential site improvement standards require that each multifamily unit provides for 1/2 a space per unit to provide visitor spacing out in the public space, either in the right of way or
Parking lot or whatever.
That's not provided for in this redevelopment plan. So unfortunately, you could say, well, great, we meet the redevelopment plan, but we fall woefully short in terms of available parking with it in this area. So how the redevelopment plan was developed to that point is an issue, at least in my mind, but I wasn't part of that, and I can't hold this particular applicant to a higher standard. So we have to reconcile that amongst ourselves here.
Wouldn't that condition fall on our our requirements for parking, reducing?
RSIS is it regulates all residential throughout the state. Like,
Which is 2.5.
you can't decide that you don't want to comply with RSIS, that's a state requirement. But I agree with you, that the RSIS and this redevelopment plan do not reconcile itself with parking.
Right, so Walter's 100% correct. They meet the redevelopment plan requirements. However, that falls short of what, certainly well short of what the town requires or what the borough requires and its needs. And we can't do a thing about it because they meet the requirements of the redevelopment plan. So, however, I'll leave it at that.
Redevelopment plan.
And I guess any resolution of approval would have to have a waiver listed in it from our side.
That's right.
Well, the waiver has to go to DCA.
Well, we would have to say
It's a
yes,
notice to DCA.
and then send a notice to DCA.
So RSIS requires 101.5 according to our professionals' letters, and they're providing 95. So they'd be 7 short of RSIS.
But it's the location of some of those spaces, which is at issue there, in my mind. For instance, there's a lot of townhomes that provide no office, no parking for visitors.
For visitors, yeah.
So what, we can't hold them to it.
Right.
We're stuck.
I can see that.
Okay. Walter, are you satisfied? Well, would you just be sure to describe fully the bulkhead, the waterfront development that's required by DEP for a project like this, how you complied, and talk about the open space that's available, and then what is public and what is for the homeowners?
Sure, so we are in for a CAFA permit. There's a separate consultant that's handling that. We have submitted to them and received some initial comments. I believe there was a pre-application meeting with them as well. The park will be borough-owned. We just went through the grass area. There's also a dog park that's proposed that'll have synthetic turf. It'll be fenced in and has human and water fountains, human and dog water fountains, as well as artificial hydrants. A lot of this was spelled out, I believe, in your redevelopment plan. A lot of grass, landscaping, benches, the boat ramp we discussed, a fish cleaning station, and bike racks. Now, Ms. Bean brought up in her letter that the redevelopment plan, for whatever reason, requires bike racks to be outside of the publicly owned or public right-of-way. We did show them in the park. So we're happy to move them if you'd like us to and comply with your ordinance, or leave them there and request a waiver.
Where you propose them, so that they'll understand that, and then what's the alternative?
Right, so we had, we have benches, kind of have a whole landscape bench wall here. Just a retaining wall in that area that can be used as a bench. There's bike racks that are proposed here, here. It's a little obscured by the tree. And there's also bike racks proposed over here. Again, those are all in the park, which is publicly owned. For whatever reason, your redevelopment plan requires them to be outside of it. So we can find another home for them on the privately owned site, or we can leave them there. It just, if we were to leave them there, we need to request a waiver.
I think they should stay where they are and then just request a waiver. I think where they're located, it's not, 100% compliant with the redevelopment plan, but I think the location that they're proposing is a little bit more realistic. Yes. So I brought it up because it's in the redevelopment plan. I just wanted to make sure everything was buttoned up. But I think where they have it located, and there's benches there too, right, Walter? In that area?
Yep.
So I think that complies with the intent, maybe not the letter of the redevelopment plan, but the intent of it. So I would submit what they proposed, I think, is a better alternative than strict compliance.
Yeah, we want to encourage people to come out of this development with their bikes to this area.
And the benches too.
And I think that makes sense.
Is there a lighting proposed?
So the lighting, we haven't shown the lighting.
Could we wait, hold up a second on the lighting? I just want to make sure that you're 100% settled with the benches and the,
I'm good.
well,
I mean, obviously it's up to them, but I'm good with it.
Mr. Chairman, I have one question, last question about parking. There's 7 spaces on the condo building that show outside of the building, and they're not on the architectural plans. The architectural plans, it appears that there's walls and windows there. You know what I'm talking about, Walter?
Yes, I do.
Make sure that's going to be reconciled.
Yeah,
those are 7 spaces we need.
Yeah, sure.
That's correct. I have an exhibit of it, but it wasn't a part of the official package because we revised that plan after. So it'll be coordinated and submitted.
So it'll be open, that part of the building will be open with columns.
Yes.
To allow cars coming through.
Yes.
Parking on the outside of the condo building in the back.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, so back to the benches and are we 100% clear on location?
This seems happy. I'm happy.
Is that, everybody likes that?
Jennifer and Dave are happy with it, I am.
Can I ask
Sounds
a
like
question?
And you'll find in this town, we do a lot of donating of benches too. They've been adding them to the parks and stuff, people donate them, so probably it'll increase in time.
Clarity of maintenance responsibility. If I'm not mistaken, the Riverwalk area, bench area is considered a public area, but it is going to be maintained by the building department.
The boardwalk and the bulkhead are on the HOAs.
Any grass along there?
I believe it's just the boardwalk and the bulkhead on the HOA, and then the balance is dedicated to the park area.
So you, in your mind, we don't have to go into details here, there are areas of this natural area that you think that the town's responsibility to maintain?
I believe so, and the redevelopment agreement, I think that's how it's.
I just want to get, not now, I want to get clarity on that because that was not my understanding.
Hey, Mr. Hopkins is under oath. I think you heard some questions there.
Oh.
Can you address them all?
Yes.
Maybe just
So, by the way, in case anybody wants to know, this is Steve Litzner, who is the general manager of this project on behalf of Denholz.
Let's see if,
He's the senior executive.
You want to swear him in, so if he gets involved, it's legitimate?
Oh, we might as well.
Let's try to say.
It's only to answer questions. We're not offering direct testimony, so we're not subject to cross-examination.
Yeah, raise your right hand, please. You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
And state your name, spell your last name, please.
Stephen Lidster, last name Lidster.
Okay.
So, Mr. Litzner's testimony a few minutes ago, would you verify that you would say that under oath?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I was having trouble hearing him, so can you please?
All right, so Kevin, just want to be clear.
So it's my understanding that the bulkhead and the walkway along the bulkhead are the responsibility of the HOA, and then the balance of the public park would be dedicated to the borough. I think that's all spelled out in the redevelopment agreement, but again, we can.
And that includes things like the dog walk?
Dog walk, I think, is actually on the HOA, I think, because that's kind of part of the boardwalk.
Okay, I don't want to belabor this, but I'd just like to get clarity of who's responsible for what.
Yeah.
So there's no misunderstanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's spelled out in the redevelopment agreement.
So the dog park is HOA?
I believe so, yeah. I'll have to check the.
So is the dog park open to other people?
Yes, just the maintenance responsibility is what we're talking about.
My understanding is the Riverwalk area, the walkways, the bulkhead, the dog park, the fishing station, the kayaking launch, all of that, Steve, is open to public use.
Yes.
All of that.
All open to public use, yes.
And the maintenance of most of it, and we'll figure out what most is, the responsibility of the HOA, and we'll define what is, you believe, the responsibility of the town based on the redevelopment agreement.
Yeah.
Okay, because I did sit through some of the meetings and walking in, I would have thought that you were responsible for all of those areas, but we'll clarify.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
Sure.
Well, before you move on, there's just a discrepancy on the plans where you have some, like, a note that says decorative metal fencing, and then the details on the show split rail fencing.
I don't know that we have a preference. We can clarify that.
I mean, I would love decorative metal fencing as opposed to split rail, but I just, it's just discrepancy in the plan. So I just need to understand what you're proposing.
The decorative metal fencing is
Great.
fine, and we'll clarify that.
Okay.
Clean up that discrepancy.
Jennifer, do you want to go through your list, or?
He's been checking them off. I've been checking them off, and then, a couple of things. You haven't talked about lighting yet, correct?
Correct. I can jump right into that, or do you want? So lighting, it's very short. We haven't selected the lighting yet. The lighting would be building mounted. Your redevelopment plan does require that lighting be provided. We can add that to the plans as a condition of approval, and we'll stipulate tonight that it will be in compliance with your redevelopment plan and approval by your board planner and engineer.
All the shielding and light direction that you require.
That's specifically outlined in the redevelopment
plan.
No provision for lighting, like along the walkway or anything.
Yeah, why don't you describe?
We don't have any lighting selected yet, and again, I think it would be good for us to work with your planner to make sure that it's appropriately lit but not overlit.
Right.
Like I would think like maybe some bollard lighting, like along the walkway that's dim but safe. You know what I mean?
We have some outside of this building. But you could take a look at them. I mean, I'm not saying you have to use those, but it's similar. That was the idea. Provide some lighting, but
I don't want it to like be seen from space.
we don't want everybody in Rumson screaming about it.
Well, in fact, I think this may be part of because DEP does have view shed requirements, so it may be addressed by them as well. Something that I didn't bring up is one of the reasons we relocated the layout of this is sensitive to the view sheds. So now we'll have direct views down all of the streets in this project. So down Surf, you'll have it.
When you speak of a view, it looks through the project to the water.
That's correct.
And that's part of one of the DEP requirements.
Surf, New Street, Church, yeah, they all will have direct views down to the river.
Okay, so you addressed the lighting. Well, you didn't really talk about the circulation of vehicles.
Right, so we're greatly improving it now. Again, as the board knows, this area is kind of truncated a little bit as far as circulation, and we're opening that all up. So we're taking Front Street along Surf and New, and we're extending it along New out to Church, bumping it out a little bit further to the river, and then going from Church down to South and then connecting it to river. It's something that you don't have now. It gives free circulation throughout there. In addition to that, we're proposing two HOA driveways, roadways, whatever you want to call them, between South Street and River Street to allow access to the townhomes.
One of the comments in my letter had to do with Front Street and its 18-foot width behind those townhouses near River Street. Is that something that can be widened?
When Mr. Hoder asks for something, I almost always want to provide it. So rather than look to see whether we can or we can't, I know that we can steal a few feet from the other side and we can accommodate the 21 feet.
And your private driveway is 20, so, and that was 18, and that's a public road. Right. So I'd like to make it wider.
Okay, we'll do.
They were just talking about the public roads.
No, we're talking about the one public road between South and River.
And so we're widening that to 21 feet.
You're going to 21 foot?
That's correct.
It's a foot on each
I
side.
think the request was can it be widened, and our response is that we think we can reach 21 feet.
But that's a private driveway, isn't it?
No, it's a public street.
Well, you're talking about Front Street out in
We're
front.
talking about in the public street.
Okay.
And 18 to 20.
Mr. Hoder's talking about, I believe,
No, I see it now.
this area along here.
You want to widen that from 19 to 21.
How about my comment about mill and overlay for any existing streets within the project area? You know, some areas you're going to be doing a lot of utility work.
Yeah. Yes, we will. And we would add a note to the plan that
When it's
says
done, it'll look like a brand new street.
we don't want to leave it as
A lot of these streets were reconstructed in the last 10 years.
You're gonna provide all the signage too, aren't you, you're gonna provide all the signage, right, for, street signage for?
Yes. We don't have a lot of it shown on our plans. I'd like to meet with Mr. Hoder and perhaps with DPW to get a feeling how they.
Well, there you're just following the regulations, right?
But yeah,
You're not doing
but
anything.
that's fine. We can do it with a Zoom meeting or a phone call.
Yeah. But these are all signs that everybody's seeing on regular traffic operations.
So, Mr. Chairman, I did do a letter September 21st, and I guess to make it a little quicker, I can ask Mr. Hopkins if there's anything that he doesn't agree with in my letter. He's already agreed to the big ones.
We agree to everything in the letter. We did, we reviewed it.
That makes my life easier.
Makes my life easier too.
Walter?
Yes.
Can I ask you a question? If you go to the extreme northwest corner of the property, I understand what Dave said in the widening of the street, it makes a lot of sense to me. That area starts to get extremely narrow. Is that walkway, that pavement walkway, intended to go, where is that intended to end? Because if we widen that street, we're going to start really digging into that corner.
Well, we're at 18 now, so we're just going to dig in 3 feet, and you can see the boardwalk goes up there, and it splays out a little bit where it touches, so we can seal the 3 feet from there.
So the walkway will continue all the way to the end of the development?
Yes.
And people will be able to turn east at that point in time?
Yes, we have the boardwalk along the bulkhead, and then you see we have a paver walk that runs along Front Street, turns and goes down River Street and terminates at the end of
I'm just, people walking down the street on River and they want to get to this, they can get to the river walk and the bulkhead without having to go into the street.
Correct.
Is what I asked.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few comments that I think we ought to talk about in the review letter from the planner, if you haven't. Are you able to provide on the plans square footage for all the proposed buildings?
Yes.
What number are you working on?
That's number F on page 6. Comment J is we address the details and site lighting. You'll follow us with that.
Yes.
Comment K on page 6 asks for commentary on the use of the flex space on the second and third floors.
I think
that was provided by Mr. Cockburn.
Yeah.
And can you provide the board with details? I think we're satisfied there. Comment L on the manner and frequency of trash pickup. That's been addressed. Comment N discusses the fact that even requires condominiums to provide a loading area for deliveries. And again, I think we've addressed that.
Right, except for also there should be a ride share drop-off pickup.
So we have that, we do have these 2 spaces. They're not signed, but we can certainly add those, and that's what those were intended for.
That's fine, yep. If you could just put some signage there, that'd be great.
On letter E, did you read that one? I didn't really understand that. The development appears to have shifted to the east?
Yeah,
I don't know what
so-
you meant by that.
So when the redevelopment plan was approved, there was a plan associated with the plan that the governing body approved that showed that condo building a little bit farther to the west, providing a little bit more separation between the building and the amenities and the residential lot. That's correct, that's right there. It appears based on these plans that that development has shifted to the east, closer to that residential home. And if you go through the redevelopment plan and the redevelopment agreement, it says very clearly that it's to be consistent with that concept. So that is what that comment is about, because it's now more imposing on that single-family residential home, whereas when it was presented and approved, it was farther to the west.
So how do we resolve that?
They're going to have to address it.
So this project has gone from one engineer to another, so I don't have access to what the plans were what they approved. What I can offer to the board is, through that process, you did develop setbacks, and we comply with the current revision to the plans. We comply with your setbacks.
I mean, it's up to you, but if you read the letter of the agreement and the plan, it says consistent with what was approved with the plan.
All right, well,
So
I don't have that knowledge.
We could include a condition that the what might be approved by the board, just be adopted by governing body and amended.
If they want to.
Right, if they want to.
So what, how much did it move?
It moved about 15 feet.
Oh. That's substantial. But that's not the building itself, is it? It's just-
Yes, it's the building itself. If you look at the property, it's like literally on the property line where the stairs are. There were 15 feet between the building and that property line.
So do we have them stipulate that any approval that might be given is conditioned upon going back to the governing body?
I would say yes. It should go back to the governing body.
Step back one foot in the redevelopment?
No.
Or conform to the redevelopment ordinance, either way.
Yeah, but that would mean moving it toward the river
Right, but-
and losing those parking spaces.
I agree with you though. So they either reconcile the two, or the governing body needs to say yes, that this is acceptable, because what they approved with the redevelopment plan had the building off this person's property line, basically.
Can somebody tell us what that projection off the back of that building is, off the wall, of the hallway? Near the elevator?
I can, I just need to
Because then we can understand, because if that's eliminated, that helps an awful lot.
Correct.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Shows it as a stairwell, doesn't it?
I don't know what it is, no, it might be, it's got stair-like looks to it.
Are we talking about this piece right here?
Yeah, what is that?
That's a stairwell.
You need it? Can you move it
I
inside?
need- Yes, can I move it? I can look into it.
I mean, this is part of what we're talking about, that's
Yeah.
that much closer.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so,
I mean, I wasn't involved in the initial, like, you guys are looking at me like I drafted the original plan. I didn't, I wasn't here at the time. But the plan is what it is, but the language in the agreement is very consistent. It says it's consistent with the plan, or the concept plan attached to the agreement, which shows this building, which is not an insignificant sized building, that's literally on top of this person's property line. And so, and let me be very clear, the person hasn't been quiet about it, so that's how it came to my attention, because they brought it to my attention. So it's something that I agree, Kevin, like, we can't deal with it here because it's kind of outside our control. If the board were to act in the affirmative, I would say a condition is that they need to go back to the governing body and make sure the governing body is okay with the placement of the building. If they're not, then they're gonna have to figure it out and then come back.
Just so I'm clear, and I agree with
Yeah.
everything you said, the whole building moved, it didn't enlarge.
Correct, it just shifted. It looked, so, you know, there was like a separation, like a 15-foot separation from, like, if you look at the building now, it's literally on the guy's corner of his property. It's like on top of his property line.
Lot 11.
It was set off 15 feet when this was brought to the governing body for their approval. And I agree, it was conceptual at the time, right? As you know, it's not hard engineered, there's no hard architecture. But there was an understanding that there was going to be some separation between this homeowner's property and this building, which is a not insignificantly sized building for the borough. So I would say, John, I would just submit that if the board is to act in the affirmative, that you would just bring this plan back to the governing body and make sure they're okay with the location of it, because there are those that may not be. They may be, I don't know. I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying there's this discrepancy, and I just want to make sure everything's on the table, and that if this were to move forward, we're not going to go months down the line, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, this is a problem, so.
The redevelopment plan would have to be revised, or the plan would have to be revised.
Correct,
One or the other.
or they could just accept it, like, in a resolution as a modest amendment, yes.
I understand the procedure that you're advising of, and that, of course, is one option. We're kind of looking at being able to move that stairway into the building. Not sure exactly how far. So be able to improve the situation, perhaps even solve it at 15. But I do point out that the redevelopment ordinance does say 1 foot.
What does it say?
1 foot.
1 foot.
Right, but it's literally on the corner, like, on the corner, so.
Well, what's saying?
I get it. I'm just saying that when this was approved and it had public hearings to get the redevelopment plan approved, there was a representation that it was not going to be on top of this individual's property, and now it's shifted. So it's a little different, regardless of what all the nuances are in the plan. that I think needs to be reconciled and make sure that we're all on the same page moving forward, because, you know, this is gonna be a drastic difference for this, at least this one property owner who does not have like a big building on the corner of his property currently, so.
Jen, is it fair to say that block 10 and 9 were not equally affected because it was always along that line?
Yes, it's really lot 11 is the concern.
I understand.
But even if they remove the staircase, you're only gonna gain 7 or 8 feet. You're not
Correct.
gonna
I mean,
15.
it's better, but it's still, I still think regardless, I still think we should, if you guys want to act in the affirmative, I still think we should put a condition in there.
Well, first of all, I'm here to ask you to act in the affirmative, so we'll start with that idea. But I think that between the time that this was decided and the plans were perfected, there might be a number of ways to achieve that. And
That's fine.
One way or another,
I'm just bringing it up
Yeah, I
as
think
a
your
disconnection.
procedural
Yes.
I would, I think we're well placed and correct, and within that, I'm saying to the board, our clients can perhaps, they're looking at the, they think there's a way to move that stairway further away, and therefore move the building back. But one way or another, I think Jen's procedure addresses it, and I'm representing that our clients will take a look first to try and remove the building before we ask for that relief.
Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be by exactly 15 feet, but I think the point is when there is a change from a concept that's deemed substantial enough, and this, we may be looking at an example of that here, then the governing body might say, hey, wait, this isn't what we talked about. You know, so we're not saying get us 15 feet, but make some improvements so that it's not substantially different from the concept.
Exactly.
And our client will work towards that. That's reasonable, perfectly stated.
One of the other questions I had on your review was under item number 4, the type of variance, whether it's going to be a C1 or C2. I didn't, different criteria for.
I think that's just generic language in terms of there's different standards for deviations. However, the plans have eliminated the need for variances, so it's a moot point anyway.
Okay.
We don't think we have any variances.
Correct, but initially there were, but now there are not, so there
I was just reading.
Yeah. Well, we like to put in the difference between the C1 and the C2 just to lay it out for everyone, but they've amended the plans and they don't need relief.
Jen, is it fair to say the phenomenon we just spoke of, lot 11, has not happened elsewhere in the development?
Correct.
Walter, any other facts you want to present to the board?
No, thank you for the
That
questions.
concludes our engineering testimony, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good. Do we have any more questions from the board? Do we really go
There's
into?
one other thing. Somebody raised earlier landscaping. Is that part of the other plan?
Yes.
Walter, excuse me. We're not done. We want to talk about landscaping. It's all over my outline. Well, could you describe the proposed landscaping and are you in compliance with the
So there's landscaping proposed along the Riverwalk in planter areas. There's trees interspersed throughout the property that we can fit. And we have taken the opportunity to add landscaping, like for example, along the single families, the townhomes, along the street for the condos as well.
Are you showing it on Exhibit 3?
Yes, yeah. It's a little bit difficult to find some of the shrubs, but there are shrubs that are proposed in the townhouse area along South Street as well as River Street. Ms. Bean had a comment about additional landscaping or a landscaping requirement, I believe, for our private driveways between South and River. We do show some there. It's a little bit difficult to see. We can clarify that, but if there's additional that she feels we need in order to comply with the redevelopment plan, we certainly fit it in wherever we can.
But your expectation is this plan complies with the redevelopment plan?
It's always been our intention to comply with every bit of the redevelopment plan.
Related to that, the town since Sandy has done as much landscaping as possible in the tiny little town that we have. And limited green space. And we have developed a kind of understanding of what works and what doesn't work.
Okay, great.
So if we want to, we actually, our park, which is right next to the bridge, is not currently landscaped, but we have a full landscape plan which is going to go into effect this spring.
Okay.
You might want to look at the plants that he has picked for that. It's all native plants that do well in drought and low maintenance, since it looks like we may be responsible for some of the maintenance. We'll also say that trees struggle in town because of the wind and the salt. It's not to say they don't grow at all, but you drive around, you don't see a lot.
We'll take a second look at it. We actually have 2 landscape architects on staff, and we'll make sure that they pay more attention to the sensitivity of the location.
Now that I see the landscape plan though, there's another issue for you, who's gonna take care of it all? It's running into the grassy areas, the shrubs and.
And that's why we try to plant things that require very little maintenance and that, generally speaking, after they are established, don't need water.
Okay.
So Walter, you can bring the landscape plan if it isn't into compliance?
Yes, we will. Happy to.
Any other questions from the board then?
No, but I like his comment, because if I was looking across, it would be nice to have it all, match. That would be nice. That would be a nice view.
Well, we'll work with your planner and your engineer. If there's any suggestions, we'll take a look at this landscape plan. We'll take a second look to make sure that we have species that are appropriate for this application.
Ron says, oh, we're gonna look at a bulkhead.
Oh, the strip. That didn't
All right.
I guess there's just one more question.
Okay.
So you've made a lot of progress in firming up your plans. Is there anything that is still relatively open with regard to final decision, just from an engineering perspective? Or are we looking pretty much at the final recommendation?
Other than the tweaks that we've committed to, the widening of the road along Front Street, taking
That's probably the biggest change.
Yeah, taking a second.
I know we talked about lighting, we're gonna work our way through that, figure
Yes.
that out. But there are no other major moving parts that you have to nail down for us to understand.
We wouldn't be here if we had to.
Okay, good.
All right, so let's now open this to the public. Is there anybody in the public that has a question of the testimony from the engineer? Rob?
You want me to identify myself again?
I have you, Rob Long.
Thanks, Mr. Hopkins. So I think as a resident on Church Street, we're thankful for the higher bulkheads, and we like having the public access through the boat launch and appreciate that that's going to be improved. What we find with the water is it always goes to the path of least resistance, so if that's going to be open, the higher bulkheads are just going to force the water there, which could still cause flooding in the streets. So I know you're talking about a pump. Does that pump be as high as the bulkheads, or what will prevent the flooding from just coming up the bulkhead and washing into the street? That's what happens right now. It comes up through the boat launch and just flows right over the flat land right into the streets.
So we are going to get the hump up to 8 feet. So it won't be quite as high as the bulkhead.
So it'll be a very specific drop and then sent into the.
That's why there's no big boats there.
And then, is this the appropriate time to ask about the traffic patterns, or is that a separate? Oh, and will we be able to access the Riverwalk from the boat launch area?
Yes, if you see, we have a walkway that goes right along. So the walkway goes through here, right to the boat, right to the.
So if you were walking from the boat launch, can you get onto the Riverwalk from the boat launch?
Yes, we have steps and we have an ADA accessible ramp that gets you up there.
What about the other side?
Oh, okay, well, let's, Rob, you finished that?
Yes, thank you.
All right, anybody else have a question then? Would you like? Okay.
Peter Virkos, I live on Beach Street. I just have a question, access. Is my understanding correct that I can access here with the kayak and do the kayak launch here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is it also correct that there will be 2 parking lots here?
Yes, sir.
So I just want to raise that concern that if I come here with the kayak and I don't know how big these parking lots are, that they block the access to the water, because I cannot go through with the kayak when there are two cars parked.
Well, from the way I understand it, they're gonna be parallel with the walkway, they're not gonna be blocking the walkway.
Okay, so we have.
Am I correct or not, Walter?
So
He's concerned with being able to get past with his kayak and get it into the water.
So I'm not concerned, but the driver of the car is probably concerned.
We do have, so we are showing 5 feet on one side of the parking areas and 2 on the other. We could shift it to have a 7-foot clear path on one side.
Okay, I think so.
2 parking spaces and then a 7-foot clear path on the side.
Part of that is making sure people park appropriately. Not easy.
I can't engineer common sense.
Enforcement.
Well, if you know they're coming through the kayak, so they can park.
Well, you might, yeah,
A
well,
lot of people
particularly.
use that, so this is a really good point.
Yeah, no, I think.
Let's do one person at a time. Are you finished then?
It's gravel, it's a gravel.
Should we work
space.
across the room? We'll start back in that corner then? You don't mind if you wait, do you?
Thanks.
Depends how much time you have.
Well, we don't take any more testimony after 10 PM, so.
So I really felt happy and positive about a lot of this redevelopment. It's pretty exciting, but at the same time, I have some major concern that I hear.
Is this a statement or a question of his testimony?
No, the question is about the bulkhead. Is it going to be 9 feet? And why don't we see an artist rendering of that bulkhead in these pictures? Because after hearing tonight, some of my concern is the beauty and the aesthetic look of our town with these buildings up so high in the bulkhead. So I would like to see some examples of what that is going to look like.
Well, that was my concern initially too, but after it's explained now, it's not a 9-foot high bulkhead, it's elevation 9. So and what they're gonna do is grade all the property up so it's a comfortable slope. So that was my concern initially, that we're not gonna be looking at an ugly wall.
Walter, what's the elevation of the walkway? Is it at 9?
Yes, it is.
So the elevation of the walkway is at 9, and the bulkhead is at elevation 9, so it'll be flush with the walkway.
And then it'll taper down toward the.
Correct. It's not 9 feet in the air. It's elevation 9 on the top, and the walkway's at 9. So you're going to be right at the same elevation.
So is there an example that's already been built that we could actually drive and go look at where, you were talking units up against the water, bulkhead, something of an example? There's not even a picture. So I live downtown, and now my concern is aesthetically how it's going to blend in and enhance our town.
Well, one of the things
You're not going to see the bulkhead. So basically, if you live downtown, you're going to see the development. The walkway is going to run along the river as required by the DEP, and the walkway and the bulkhead are going to be the same elevations.
I'm not going to be able to see the river anymore.
I mean, that's a product of, I think what their testimony was, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you have broken up the massing to allow for view corridors as required by the redevelopment. So it's not one wall of building, but those buildings are going to be between you and the river. Yeah.
So, right.
Basically, you can still look up the street.
Correct.
The buildings are on either side of the street, so you maintain that view.
But the bulkhead is not creating any visual impediment to the river.
If you were standing on Front Street, now you, rather than looking at the.
Oh, great, you're gonna see the
buildings. So perhaps his concern is what would it look like?
I don't know.
Say Front Street, which might be elevation 4 or 5, and now the bulkhead.
Parts of Front Street are actually elevation 2 and 3. So if you're standing there and you're 6 feet tall, well, you're not gonna see over that bulkhead.
Right, so.
You're gonna see a development in front of you.
And you'll see landscaping and grass.
So, and that's what I would like to see in pictures, right? I'd like to see how that's gonna look.
Yeah. No, they don't have it.
So that's, my question would be that, right? Aesthetically, how it's gonna appear. Is it gonna enhance and beautify our town?
Well, they have the requirement now to build the bulkhead to a higher elevation than for flood control for the future. So they're kind of limited on what they can do, and they're landscaping it instead. But if we're gonna create bulkheads high enough to protect our town, there's no way around it.
But how's it gonna look? Right? We don't know how it looks. We're just talking about it. It's being proposed. We're looking at pictures. We can only imagine. But after it's done, we have to live here. We all have to enjoy Seabright together. Is it gonna aesthetically enhance and beautify? Or what are we looking at?
It's hard to visualize. I think you're absolutely right. It's hard to visualize without seeing it. But as we heard and as Jen said, when this area gets developed and you're on it, you're not going to have a sense of the bulkhead unless you're in the river. And it will be a beautiful view.
That's what I want. I want you to reassure me that this major project is going to be beautiful. Sorry, I think it's the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean,
We think it's going to be beautiful.
One of the things that I think is unique about this, and I'm not trying to advocate one way or the other, is this HOA has exactly the same goals that we, the town and the residents in downtown have. And that's a beautiful place for people to live. They're not selling the property and walking away. So their desire, I think, is to maintain it so it's beautiful for the people that buy it and the people that are around it. And to the extent that I've seen these details, and I haven't seen what you asked for, I'm interested in it as well because I'm very focused on bulkheading in town. But what's going to be unique about this is the terrain around it is for the residents and yourselves going to hide most of that by elevation as you're walking around the property.
Well, again, it sounds like it can be really nice. I'd like to see the example.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to object at this point. I think this question's been asked and answered like 5 different times.
Yeah.
Maybe we could move on.
Yeah, let's, can we have you stand and?
Chris Terry, 15 Church Street. So, 2 quick things. I think what he's trying to say is if I walk and stand outside my house and I look down the street, I'm not going to see the river.
But you're not going to see a building, you're not going to see a building either, you're going to see through it.
But what I'm going to see through
The street lines up with the openings between the buildings.
But I'm just not going to see the river.
Only because we have to build a 9-foot high bulkhead.
Yeah, and I agree. I understand
There's no way to get around
protecting the town. I get it all, but I'm trying to clarify probably maybe some of the things Drew was saying. Second question: can we verify which lot is being encroached? The 15
11.
feet?
You see the L-shaped building?
Yeah, because I'm lot 10, so I'm assuming it's my neighbor.
Right next to you.
Yeah, Richard. So I'm going to pass that information on to him. He's currently overseas, and he's going to be less quiet than he's been.
Well, that's why I brought it up.
Is there any other forum or anything that he can talk to everybody about this, or does he have to just email?
Well, I mean, I can't help that he's overseas, but technically he should be here to present it in the public hearing. Like, we can't like put a pause on the process because he's not here. But I was made aware of his concerns when this came up in the fall before we had to make some adjustments, and that's why I brought it up. And I think the condition that Mr. Sadi and I recommended is the best he's going to get. Is that, you know, they are compliant with the requirements, setback requirements, but I understand the concern that the way it was presented is not the way he envisioned it. And that's why we had said that we would put a condition if the board acts affirmatively that they would go back to the governing body and present this as is and see if it's consistent. And that's basically the best we can do.
I understand, it's just a 50-foot building, 7 or 8 feet.
I get it, 100%.
You know, it goes from, that to.
Yep, no,
Like a
100%.
movie theater seats, right?
Yep.
So last question, I just wanted to clarify the parking that's supposed to be public parking that is being acquired from all this, around the kayak thing and around the condo building. When you say public parking, are we saying in-town people with their parking passes? Or are we saying anybody who wants to go park there can park there?
Yeah, first of all, I think it's early for making a determination, but I think it's an excellent question, right? Because there's a big difference between general public and resident in the area.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's a real sensitivity. So
But you know what's going to happen. And if it is public parking for everybody, will there be time limits on it?
Yeah, that's the other thing I was thinking about.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, please.
How much time do I have? 4 minutes? I'm going to ask some engineering questions. Garrett Middleton from 22 Surf again. Because I think the engineering is probably the most important thing here. All that other stuff is. Anyway, any thought given to some underground retention structures here? I know you have a CAFRA application in, and I'm working on a major project in South Jersey, and we have an underground storm retention system. I find it highly unlikely you're going to be able to discharge the additional drainage from this project direct to the river, even if it goes through a pump station. So I'm wondering if there was any thought to any underground storage or retention systems with some water quality systems involved. So that's my first question. There are
I'll
approximately.
answer that right away. We have too high of a water table. You can't-
I'm 100 feet off the Delaware River. We're doing one there, so it's anything's engineering capable. We have 5 new inlets or 4 new inlets going to the existing drain system in Surf Street. I live on Surf Street. A 25-year storm inundates the street even without a high tide. So I'd just like to ask that, because I read the drainage report, and there's been no investigation done on this for the capacity in the existing system that I can tell. There's some disclaimers about the ability for the pump station to accommodate things, so there's some more engineering that has to go on there. The parking that's been discussed in front of the kayak launch, if I could just go to the exhibit, because I'm not clear with some questions. I'm sorry?
I didn't understand your question. What was your last question?
About the ability for the existing storm system, which is currently has no laterals coming from this side, and also accommodate the additional drainage.
What was the answer?
We're reducing the impervious area, as you know, that's all.
I've seen that, but increasing the flow. Impervious is one thing, the runoff, right? So I know the Manning equation and the CIA and all the rest of it. So you're saying that you're not contributing additional flow to the system?
We haven't done the analysis because there's a significant reduction of impervious.
That's fine. That's creative engineering with the impervious pavers and all the rest of it.
It's not.
It's good. It's good engineering. This is the parking area right here?
Mm-hmm.
There's a curb cut there. I'm wondering how the cars get into that. We'll put a curb cut. Oh, okay. I didn't see a curb cut on there. I would discourage that location for parking because if any of you know that area, the 2 streets converge in the middle, and to actually make turns into that area, it's a major thoroughfare. So
I don't think it's going to be very active there.
Huh?
I don't think it'll be very active.
Oh, it will be when you put 2-way traffic on Front Street. So that's that. Just a couple more that I find important. The phasing of construction says that phase 1 is the 4 single-family homes. Maybe this is not the engineers, but what does that mean, phase 1? It's not the engineers.
So the phasing is just giving the developer the ability to build the project one piece at a time. And so we do that to make sure that each phase is able to be built sequentially, so that phase 1, whatever's there, phase 2 can be built after it.
Okay. And then, like I said, the only concern I have is on the additional Front Street extension between New and Church. I would think you could accomplish the same thing with a one-way street towards the Church Street direction, thereby discouraging additional traffic coming down into this very tricky corner that we created here that will add more traffic to the area. We see the trucks have to back up and forth to get around this turn every day. Any of the delivery trucks can't make it around the turn, especially when the cars are parked at the curb lines. I think we're creating a little bit of a bottleneck there, and I wondered if we could just make that one street, maybe some curb parking along the right side to increase more of the available local parking. So that's all I have right now. Thank you.
We have a traffic engineer that hasn't spoken yet, so he could address that.
Great.
Your very short presentation. That's all that's left.
Just one comment, Dave, on the bulkhead. If the building inspector or some other agency requires it, would you be willing to put a railing on the bulkhead? Long distance, but I didn't see it on plan.
You testified that you're putting railing on the bulkhead.
Yes. We'd like to see that on the plan. Yep. I don't see it.
Okay.
We'll go in the back next.
There's 4 existing trees in the area of the existing boat launch. Are those trees going to be retained in the design?
What's your name, sir?
Mark Tyson, 23rd Street.
Got it.
There's a total landscape plan. I'm sure whatever's there now is going to be removed and new plantings will be installed.
So that's the case, those trees are going to be removed?
I would believe so.
We didn't survey individual trees. It's unusual that you would do this in this area.
If you wanted to develop that area, they'll probably have to take everything down.
We'll replace whatever we take down in that area.
And then everything new will be put back according to the landscape plan, which is probably online if you want to look it up.
How about a boat ramp in the area of the kayak launch? Is that proposed?
It is not proposed.
Boat rack.
Oh.
Not proposed.
No.
And
That's all public space there. I don't know how would you secure it.
I don't know. So the question of the railing along the bulkhead, I think that's going to have a huge impact on the visibility of the river, for people's houses in the neighborhood. Because it's, we're at 9, and now we're raising, the top of the railing is going to be at 12. So I'd say the transparency of that railing is going to be very important.
I would expect it's going to be some kind of a pipe railing. It's not going to be like an interior railing where you have to have 4-inch spacing between it.
Right.
Am I correct or no?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, it's just going to be pipe
Can you
railing.
give us a detail of the railing, please?
Yes, we will.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask my bulkhead question now?
Yes.
Chris Doxey, 9 Church Street. How are the bulkheads going to be put in? Are they going to be pilings like a bridge up here? Are they going to be jetted in, water jetted?
So our office didn't design that, but I believe it is sheet pile with IBEX
And how would that get into the ground? Pounding?
or vibratory.
Vibratory? Pounding? Pilings, okay. All right, there's a couple of really old houses on Church Street. 1902, 1904, and they're brick. I'm just wondering how that would affect the facade of the building. Myself, I live in one of those buildings, so that's why this is very important to me. So I'm going to have the building photographed and videoed before you start work. And if
We will also.
You too.
We will also.
Good.
And they often install these residential areas, seismic monitoring, so they can see.
All right, so if there's any fractures or stress cracks or unusual amount of grout falling out of the bricks, I want to know who would be responsible for that.
It all depends on what they are and where they come from, and
Well, I
if they were caused by action created by our clients are responsible. If it's caused by the garbage truck going by, then the garbage truck's responsible. So
I think the seismic topic, whatever the word is.
Meters.
The seismic meter would tell the tale?
They will evaluate how severe it is and what it would cause or wouldn't cause. Like, that's what they're doing with the bridge. I don't know if you saw that cone in the park there.
Yeah.
That's a seismic.
Okay, all right,
And they're measuring the intensity of the banging.
okay.
So I guess any claims after they're finished would be based on testimony of whether that could have caused it or not.
But I'm within 200 feet of that,
No, I
less than
understand.
200.
If this application's approved, we should put that in any resolution, that there has to be seismic monitoring of the bulkhead work.
Because I'm not
Yeah, we would do that.
Yeah.
We would do it
We
anyway.
did that with the seawall. Yeah. And in fact, dropping gigantic rocks all along.
Right.
I don't think there was a substantiated claim.
Okay,
at the end.
but I am definitely, that's a 30-year labor of love for me, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. So I just wanted to make it clear from the very beginning who would be responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anybody else in the public? Yes.
Jerry Whitney, Church Street. Just a quick question on parking permits. Will all these new condos, townhouses, will they get access to 2 resident parking permits?
No. Didn't we just discuss that? They will not be?
I don't think it's been decided, and that's kind of outside the purview of the board. That's more of a governing body conversation.
Okay.
So if this were to be approved, that's a conversation you should have with the governing body.
Okay, thank you.
Like that was one of my arguments on when we approve a house downtown that takes away street parking and they provide a 2-car garage and they still get 2 parking permits.
Yeah, it'll be the council's decision on this, but in my mind, sitting here listening to this conversation, the parking provided should be adequate for the residents to move into these new units. We don't want to have that negatively impact the residents that live on the streets presently. And I think in the end, the public spots, we're going to decide which way they're going to go. Are they going to be permitted? Are they going to be open for the public? But as was said before, I think the intent is to make sure that all the parking needed is going to be derived from that available, and we don't want to create an overflow situation for the rest of the area.
Because even in the season, that whole empty area is the parking for the lifeguards and everybody else. So who's taking all that overflow?
On Thursday morning, at the workshop, at the council workshop, that's on our agenda to try to talk about that very issue.
All right, is there anybody else in the public that has a question?
One more quick question.
Only one.
Okay, one, really quick. So they're phasing this project, right? I heard phase 1, phase 2. Where is the bulkhead part of phase 1 or is phase, so it is, right? And then bulkhead and houses? Is that you're phasing the project, right? You said
Is
phase
the
1.
bulkhead in phase 1?
And with the houses, right?
Yes.
What's the timeline from phase 1 to final phase?
Market conditions. Market conditions.
Walter, is it fair to say the entire bulkhead is first?
Yes, it is.
The entire bulkhead's going to go first.
Yes, it is.
Important to us.
Yes, it is.
It's important to the residents.
Yes, it is.
So the bulkhead gets completed before, it's the first, one of the first things we do.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's on the plan.
Another question. I don't know if this is appropriate or inappropriate, but I was just wondering what these units were going to be priced at.
That has nothing to do with this planning board.
Oh, okay. Okay. I know that's why.
All right, there's no other questions in the public. We'll close the public portion. We have a rule in our town where we don't take any testimony after 10 p.m.
Well, I'm going to ask that you waive that, Mr. Chairman, because we have one witness left. We're an affordable housing project. We've been in planning for months. There was we had been scheduled to be heard, but because of some scheduling issues and then board identification of consultants and so forth, we couldn't get heard. Mr. Ray is our traffic consultant. His direct testimony will be between 5 and 7.5 minutes.
7.5.
Well, because I know how careful you're going to watch it.
I am now.
But does the board have any objections to going on a little later?
No.
Okay, let's proceed then.
I'm going to call John Ray.
Real quick, before you dismiss this witness, that's all. This whole area is in a floodplain, right?
Yes.
I don't believe it's represented anywhere on your plans.
Okay.
Could that, as a condition of any approval, could that be shown on the plans And certainly, and we've done it elsewhere, that, you know, these property owners be notified that this is in a floodplain, in fact.
It's designated as a V zone, they're gonna have to comply with the building requirements.
No, but I think it's more for the people that buy it, like.
No, we're talking about
construction is one thing, but-
Our client will, of course, comply with all notification requirements.
And the plans should be reflective of whatever floodplain.
Well, that's
It's a note on the cover sheet, but we can add it to the plans.
Please.
I've also asked that the architect's plans be noted so that they have the proper elevations for all the finished floors, as opposed to off the ground. No, do it based on the data.
Okay. Thanks, Warren. Thank you.
You start swearing first. Right hand, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
State your name, please, and spell your last name.
John Ray, R-E-A.
R-E-A?
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray,
Can you put your credentials on the record so we can?
I'm a licensed professional engineer. I'm a principal with McDonough and Ray Associates. We have offices in Manasquan and Westfield, New Jersey. My field of specialty is traffic engineering. I have a total 48 years experience.
I can attest that I've worked with Mr. Ray for probably 30 years.
Very nice.
Yes.
I probably been Dave to
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Dave. If I could,
John, if you were under direction, prepare a report to this board.
I did. It's basically a circulation.
Folks to the back, I'm having trouble hearing. Can you limit the chatter, please?
It's basically a circulation and a parking report, and I am going to be brief tonight. I know that I'm only working under a 7.5 minute time limit, so I will be brief, but I did collaborate with Mr. Hopkin on the circulation plan and the parking plan. I've been involved with this project since its inception, before Mr. Woodster's firm took the project over. So I've had some familiarity with the project. I've been up to the site and driven the streets, and I'm a resident of Monmouth County. I know the summer conditions in the area, and I think the plan that has been put together is a plan that will provide for safe and efficient circulation for the new residents, as well as the residents that live in the area, and any members of the public that will come to the new public space that's being created. The parking that has been provided does meet your redevelopment plan standards, your ordinance, and I do think in fact, it exceeds it by a small amount, and from what I understand today, after all is said and done, we are going to have, Walt, if I'm not mistaken, 15 public parking spaces that are going to be part of the plan. We may be losing some spaces, so the net gain may be closer to 8, if I'm not mistaken, but there will be a net gain in the public parking that will be provided for the site. One item that I heard tonight, which I think might have been a good suggestion from the gentleman who got up about 15 minutes ago, and suggested that perhaps the new section of Front Street between New Street and Church Street, which we are currently showing as a two-way street, he suggested that perhaps that could be turned into a one-way street in a northerly direction. It's 24 feet wide, which would possibly give us the ability to put some parking along the east side of Front Street. I think it's something we can evaluate and take a look at. It might be a good suggestion. We want to take a closer look at it, but it is something that we can investigate.
John, can you give me the limits of the area of Front Street?
The new section of Front Street that will be between New Street and Church Street, we will investigate the possibility of making that a one-way street in a northerly direction, which would give us the ability to put some parallel parking along the east side of that new street.
East side.
Instead of making it a two-way street.
So Church Street would become one way going what?
No, Church Street would remain the same.
Front Street.
Remain the same.
We're just talking about the new section of Front Street.
Just Front Street.
Nothing to do with Church Street. We'll investigate.
John, are you satisfied that it meets the parking requirements for the proposed housing?
It meets and exceeds the ordinance requirements, yes.
Satisfied that the overall parking arrangement, the revision of the streets, and the interconnections are all safe and in accordance with traffic engineering?
Yes, they are, and I agree with Mr. Hopkins' assessment that the new sections of Front Street that are being constructed here and here will provide interconnectivity between Beach Street all the way to River Street, and that'll be a good thing as well.
I have no other questions, Mr. Ray.
4 minutes.
That's four.
You have a couple more minutes.
There's nothing else to say.
Does anybody on the board have any other questions of this testimony? They don't have to
Jen, I
open it
thought
to-
it was 3 3/4 minutes.
It might be.
Then we'll open it to the public. Is there anybody in the public that has a question? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Mr. Ray, do you evaluate the ability for construction traffic to safely access this site through the existing street patterns in town?
That was not one of the tasks that I did, Mr. Zelina, but that's something that I'm sure that if the project gets approved, that our engineers will sit down with your public services people, police and fire, and make sure that the hours that construction traffic can use those streets, the days, the times, will be worked out with the borough. That's usually what happens.
The second part of that question is that these local streets have to be traversed by construction traffic.
Yes.
We talked about bulkheading, we talked about fill, we talked about a lot of things that have to take place in the site. Is there anything in the redevelopment plan that provides for the repair of those streets should they be destroyed or as a part of the construction?
Mr. Zelina, in any type of development where that occurs, that's going to be a baseline, and the developer or the person that creates the issue is responsible to repair it, unless it's a pre-existing condition that is noted.
Well, that's easily determined, so I just want for the record to understand, because it's
They
being
take
fought
that
elsewhere.
survey, we'll review it with Mr. Hoder and make sure that wherever the traffic, or wherever the roadways may be insufficient to bear that weight, we'll know that in advance. And then, of course, I think that between Mr. Hopkins and Mr. Hoder, they'll come up with the route that would be the least impact to those conditions. And my limited experience, that's pretty general in a pre-construction meeting.
Answers my question, thank you, Council.
Just to follow up on what Mark said, the bulkhead is going to be the biggest thing to build with the largest pieces of material, i.e. steel, coming in. Is there a way that that can be done where the steel is brought in from the river rather than from the land? Anybody can we talk about that?
Everyone we've spoken to is planned on doing it from the land side. We haven't discussed doing it from the water side.
Those turns that we were talking about before could get pretty tough. Right, with 30, 40 foot long pieces of steel.
I mean, the situation is going to be that we're going to have empty lot at the end of this, right?
Yeah. They're going to build the bulkhead when there's nothing there. They're going to demolish everything. It's going to be a staging area for the bulkhead. Of course, if they could bring the bulkhead pieces in by barge, that would be simpler from our standpoint.
Yeah, when you first asked the question, I'm looking at this drawing here, I'm thinking there's no way you're going to do it, but everything that's in this development is an empty lot to begin with, that these trucks are going to.
Will.
Yeah, so.
And we are an affordable project, and I suspect that loading on a barge, unloading the barge, use of 2 cranes, delivery, so forth, would be unnecessarily cost generative. However, if in the pre-construction meeting that's a safety issue, well, then we'll address it that way. But from just a basic construction technique, I think our clients have been advised by the contractors that they've spoken to about the project that they will build it from the land side at a price that is still pretty significant, but within the expectations of this project. So.
That's all open land down there, Dave, so they can drive straight into the open land and maneuver down there. It's only going to be a straight drive in.
But there could be, as Mark said, there could be damage to the streets from the heavy loads.
Well, the truck can't carry any more than it legally can carry, so it's not any more excessive than what already travels on the streets.
Yes, but our streets aren't built to highway standards.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
All right. Yes, Chris, can you
Christoph C. 9 Church Street.
stand up so we can all hear you?
I sure can. Christoph C. 9 Church Street. I am sure that you are all aware by now that the piping and the sewer system on our streets are very, very, very fragile. And I think that bringing those trucks down with all the steel on it and all the equipment on it is going to be a horror for us. We have a company that comes in and fixes our pipes and on our streets all the time. And it's horrible. And when they open a pit, you look in there and there's corroded pipes with big pieces of rust falling off. So I don't want to see no water on Church Street, cave-ins on Church Street because of the weight of the trucks. And I think it's an excellent idea to bring in the heavy equipment by barge. Bring it in at the end of the street. I think the name of the company is Hinkle and McCoy. Well, we on the street call them dig and destroy, because that's what happens. It's horrible. So I want you to all be aware of that the fragile pipes on Church Street, apparently they just go and fall apart. They're just disintegrating.
Maybe we can use River Street more than any of the downtown streets for the initial delivery of equipment.
River Street
doesn't have much activity.
River Street is more of a commercial area towards the end of it.
Right.
It's where Butler's place was, and he had all kinds of heavy equipment and things coming in and out of there, as well as the aqua people who did the pools.
I think the end result of all this will be is that if there is any damage created by their equipment and their process of building down there, it'll be handled.
It'll be handled, but in the meantime, will our water be turned off? Will we be able to drive down the street with big holes in the street? No.
I don't think it would ever get to that. I can't answer for that. I don't think we'll ever get to that condition.
I mean, you're talking big pieces of steel for the bulkheading. You're talking about beams for the housing. That's a lot of weight for those streets.
There's a lot of construction going on downtown. There's a lot of equipment going up and down the streets.
But, onesie twosie, not.
That sounds like I'm supporting your application. I'm not trying to answer the question. But we try to be very friendly with all our neighbors, so if we can help them make them understand or work with them.
Part of the process requires what's called a pre-construction meeting, and the purpose of that is to understand from the regulators, if you will, Mr. Hoder, and the building departments, et cetera, what is being done and how it's being done, and that's where those kind of recommendations are exchanged. And if the borough says, don't use Church Street, use River Road, our clients will do that. So there's yet another opportunity for the borough consultants to be involved in protecting any of those fragile pipes, but if they're that bad shape, I think you need to bring that to the attention of the council, because they should be replacing them. I'm sure they don't want to have any effluents leaking into the groundwater here that would get into the pristine rivers and oceans.
The applicant will have to place money in escrow for inspectors to be on site during construction. And in a job like this, project like this, the inspector will pretty much have to be there every day.
Oh, I would think so. I definitely would think so. Because you're going to have, Church is going to look like Springs.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public have a question?
I just want to go to Matt and try to understand the traffic flow. So, on this part of Front Street, it's one way here to Surf, and then when you come down New, it's one way this way. So how will that change?
It won't change.
It won't change at all. So how will the folks who are going to come here, they're going to have to get on Beach to get to the...
Beach is the other way. Beach is one way the other way.
Yeah, Beach is one way and Westwood.
No, not that way, the other way.
All right, Beach is this way, and then you return here. So they would not be able to go down New to get to these two houses, right? They'd only be able to go down New to get to these two houses.
That's correct.
And then, so if this would just be then continued here. Okay.
You got it. Anybody else have a question for the traffic testimony? If not, or is your application complete?
Well, Mr. Chairman, that's our presentation.
Okay. We still have to open it to the public on whether there's any testimony, any comments you would like to make before the board.
Just to the point that Chris was making, one of the things I was thinking about for the developer, a project of this scope and size is going to be a lot of activity. We know construction projects generate waste. whether the developer would consider establishing a community liaison so that if neighbors of the development had any issues, we have a direct point of contact with the developer so that we can bring up those issues to them as opposed to going through the governing body. This is more.
I think you're safer to go through the governing body then.
Okay.
Yes, Chris?
Last question, I swear, Chris Doxey, 9 Church Street. How can we be assured that the residents of the Haven will not be parking on Church Street, Beach Street, Surf Street? Is towing in allowed now, or are we still away from towing?
Okay, so I'll comment on that real quickly. Again, Chris, no final decisions have been made on this because we haven't even discussed it on the council. But my view would be that in that community, they would not get resident parking decals.
Right.
Okay, which means if they park on the side street without a decal, they would be subject to the $125 fine that's in place right now.
Could they get their own parking stickers, different colors than ours?
I would imagine the HOA may actually do that.
We do that.
That's for them to say. But normally, if you're in an HOA, they want to know that you belong there and you've got decals.
Right. But it should be in their handbook, not to park on resident-only streets.
Yeah, we're very sensitive to the
Yes.
issue on resident parking. I understand the difficulty and challenge. We're going to do everything we can to help.
Okay, thanks. That was asked for, not for me, but by one of the neighbors who couldn't come tonight.
Anybody else with a question?
Just one quick question. I was wondering if the planning board could try to nudge along the signing of the development agreement. I've been trying to get a copy of the developer agreement so I can see what downstream deals we've made. It's apparently still in the mayor's office for signature, I've been told. I was told I didn't have to open it, but that will give us some hints as to what the obligations are for the developer.
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, Garrett, not finalized yet.
Yeah, that's
so things are changing. I will ask.
If it's in negotiations, which are we completed, if it's in negotiations, it's not subject to being to Oprah because there's negotiations underway.
Yeah.
Once it's signed, then you'd have access to it from Oprah. But I don't know the status.
I don't, sitting here right now, Garrett, I don't know exactly what the timeline is, but I think we all want it done as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I know there was a resolution or an order that was passed, and it was, I've been told it's with the mayor.
All right, if there's no other questions or statements from the public, we'll close the public portion. Are we going to vote on this tonight, or?
Chair.
Excuse me?
You're the chair.
I mean, I guess the question becomes, is there?
There's a few open issues here.
Well,
I'm going to say, Mr. Chairman, I don't think there's a whole lot of open issues.
I agree.
There's no variances proposed. There was some discussion about some techniques to be used. Ms. Bean outlined both of them. Our client agrees. There were a series of modifications that Mr. Asadi was writing down as we went through, which we agreed to or consulted and came up with an agreement. So I don't think there's any open issue. I would ask the board to consider that this application is without variance. The plans are substantially complete. The board and the public asked for certain modifications during the course of the hearing, and I didn't like it, but I didn't hear my client say no once. I think that we're at a point where this plan, which has been before not this board, of course, but before the town, the borough, substantially, a couple of years at this point, is ripe for approval. And that's my job, of course, is to ask for our clients to get approved, and I'm here to advocate that. I think that the case law that applies in this circumstance is very clear. It's led by two cases that say when there are no variances it is appropriate for an approval. Any conditions that the board needs to put on the approval would be reasonable and what we have discussed. And I think each of those conditions that were mentioned, either by your consultants or by a board member, I was given the high sign, if you will, by my client that they were acceptable. So
okay.
I don't know what.
Then is there anybody on the board who would like to make a motion?
Go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
To what?
Approve the plan.
Okay.
Before that motion is seconded, I want to just name the conditions, and I think two of the conditions may require a little bit of decision-making right now. So this would be a good time for that to happen before it's seconded. And so here are the conditions as I have them. Bear with me as I go. The trellises, in addition to standard conditions, the trellises will be removed from any of the buildings where they cause the height to exceed the height requirement. The applicant shall be required to arrange for seismic monitoring of during installation of pilings to ensure that there's as low risk as possible.
Installation of the bulkhead.
Of the bulkhead? Okay, let me fix that.
There'd probably be a piling less bulkhead, no piling.
Okay. To ensure there's as low risk as possible on the surrounding area. The dog park, the grass park, the landscaping, the benches, the bike racks, and fishing cleaning station are available for public use. The applicant shall stipulate that in the HOA master deed that the garages are to be used for parking vehicles only and nothing else, i.e. storage. And this is my first question. Are we adding a condition that no parking passes shall issue to residents of this project, or otherwise the developer should acquiesce to that before the governing body?
I don't know if we have the authority.
I would defer that to the governing body. I don't think we should.
So I'll delete that piece of it. But we did talk about a restriction in the master deed whereby property owners have to use their garages as parking areas and not as storage areas.
Yes.
Applicant shall obtain waiver from the RSI's parking standard. Applicant, the HOA shall be responsible for maintaining the dog park, bulkhead, and walkway. The applicant will provide decorative metal fencing along the boardwalk. The applicant can widen Front Street from 18 to 21 feet. The applicant shall comply with all the requirements set forth in the technical review letter of David Hoder, dated September 21, 2022. The applicant shall designate 2 spaces as ride-share pickup spaces. Is that what we talked about?
Yes.
The applicant shall. So this one, Councilman Bieber. This is why we have liaisons on planning boards.
Yep.
I have it as the applicant shall reconfigure the condominium building such that it shall substantially conform with the concept plan that was the subject of the development agreement with the governing body to the satisfaction of the borough planner. We could go that way, but I also heard it needs to go before the governing body if it's going to change necessarily. I don't think that's what we want to say. I think we want to say that if Jen sees the modifications and feels that it's substantially consistent with what was presented to the
I'm okay with that if you're okay with that.
I am. Okay. So that's the route we'll go, and it's a little less arduous for the applicant as well. The landscaping will be provided, landscaping plan will be provided during compliance, and the applicant will work with the borough professionals to make sure that the landscaping complies with the redevelopment plan. Plans to be modified to allow a 7-foot walk next to the 2 parking spaces for the boat ramp. And finally, the applicant's traffic consultant will consult with the borough engineer and consider making the section of Front Street between New Street and Church Street as a one-way northbound only circulation road. So those are the
I think the only other thing that we had discussed was trying to put some kind of a purification or ventilation system in the trash.
So during the architectural testimony, there were questions about ventilating the odors from the garbage area, and somebody stated that there is the ability to deodorize it or filter it so that it lessens the odor.
Yeah, so we can deodorize the space.
Okay.
And we'll pipe the vent to the right of way.
Yes, Tommy installed some small system in there, it works fine.
then the exhaust will go to the right of way, so. it's not too adjacent lot.
Did we discuss moving that stairway inside?
Well, that's what they discussed.
Yeah,
That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about, the whole thing. It could be that way, it could be a different way of doing it. Kevin, I also have, I had asked if they could change the gravel walkway, part of the gravel walkway to the boat ramp to pervious pavers for at least to the back of the distance of to the rear of the buildings. So as to not have stone out near the street and in the lawn.
Kevin, can I ask you a question? Sure. Steve, who's responsible for what is in the developer's agreement?
Yes.
Okay, because if it is, that governs. And I don't recall it that way, but I could be mistaken.
And I could be mistaken as well.
I would say consistent with the development agreement, which effectively means to take that action out. So we could take P's condition out, we could just say, well, we don't have to say.
The maintenance is consistent with the redevelopment agreement.
Right. So,
There are two things that need to be added to the plans. One is that the applicant shall submit a lighting plan, which he doesn't have now, as part of compliance.
And they'll comply with our regulations.
Regulations of lighting.
Yeah.
And then also a signage plan of some kind, showing the signs, whether they're regulatory or advisory on site.
All right, if that's it, then we're past questions.
It's not
We have a motion on the, hang on one second.
It's something to add to the motion.
I said one question, I think he answered it. With the resident that lives in lot 11.
Yeah, we talked
Yeah,
about
they
that.
discussed that.
yeah, that's to address that.
So do we have a second on that motion?
Mr. Chairman.
Dave, you left one thing out of the motion.
There's a motion on, there's no more discussion in the
Did
public.
you put the seismic monitor?
What about the reconsideration of using Church Street as a service road? You were gonna reconsider that with another,
No, that's gonna be based on their site plan, their site, Dave Hoder's, pre-construction.
Pre-construction meeting.
All right, so we had a second on that?
Yes.
Who, I want.
Okay, so my first was Councilman Bieber, second was Mr. Sullivan.
All right, then I guess we'll have a roll call on this.
Councilman Bieber,
Yes.
Ms. Bills,
yes.
Mr. Julio,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Sales,
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence,
Yes.
Mr. Salima.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Garrett?
Excuse me, Candace, do you want I can take it off. Yeah, no, I'll just take them off.